Chapter 364 Breakthrough to the Perfect Completion of the Taoist Repository Free Immortal Realm. The second 100 million years. Guan made his decision and stared intently at the prompts. One after another, the prompts emerged, all of them failures. Facing tribulation every 2 million years, he could only attempt it 50 times in 100 million years. The experience of failing 200 or 300 times before had made Gu increasingly tense. In the end, they were all failures. 200 million years of lifespan, 100 failures. Gu remembered the heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation. Although he hadn't enhanced his cultivation technique or divine skills, he felt all aspects of himself were already sufficiently powerful. This heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation really has some substance. Gu reflected emotionally, then once again committed 100 million years of lifespan. Failure, failure, failure. Guan saw that the lifespan barrier had barely consumed any lifespan and felt as if the barrier was silently mocking him. Another 100 million years. It should be a success now, right? Guan gritted his teeth, no longer able to maintain his composure. The prompt came out again, faster than before. Another failure. Guan had now squandered 400 million years of his lifespan, failing 200 times. He couldn't help but think of Long Zhan. He didn't know how many years of lifespan it had taken Long Zhan to succeed in his breakthrough. He had inherited Long Zhan's memories, but he couldn't see Long Zhan's life-stealing prompts, nor could he hear Long Zhan's inner monologue at that time. He could only experience Long Zhan's life through his own eyes, which was how he was certain he himself was the true incarnation. He wouldn't get lost because of it. Long Zhan had never revealed his life-stealing ability to anyone, nor did he ever talk about his lifespan, so Guan didn't know how many years of lifespan Long Zhan had. However, recalling Long Zhan's memories, he realized that Long Zhan did indeed feel frustrated in the early stages of charging into the Tao Fruit Realm. Presumably Long Zhan had also failed many times. Guan took another deep breath, cast aside all distractions, and continued with the breakthrough. He still had 600 million years of lifespan left. It would be fine as long as he succeeded. After all, the lifespan is just a number, which can be slowly accumulated. Besides, he was more fortunate than Long Zhan, who only unlocked the life-stealing ability in the late stages of his life, while he was just 419 years old. There were endless possibilities in life, as long as he didn't act as arrogantly as Long Zhan had. Another 100 million years. Guan decided in his heart, and as soon as all prompts had settled, he immediately invested another 100 million years of lifespan. He didn't overlook his attribute panel, which still showed 400 million years of lifespan. Another failure. Guan had to stop. He needed to calm down. 2 more tries. If he still wasn't successful after 200 million years, he would have to stop this time. After all, attempting to break through would consume lifespan in the lifespan barrier. The last breakthrough consumed 50 million years of lifespan, and this time it would definitely double. Here we go again. 100 million years. Guan's eyes turned icy cold, but they soon shifted. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 48 million years, forcefully charged into the Tao Fruit Realm with the great accomplishment of eternal infinite skill, and began tribulation crossing. You have endured the heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation and succeeded, stepping into the Tao Fruit Realm. Your cultivation level has broken through to the early stage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 85 million years, and your cultivation level has improved to the mid-stage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 100 million years, and your cultivation level has improved. Breakthrough success. The division of minor cultivation levels was no longer 9 layers, but was now early and middle stages. It seems that the Tao Fruit Realm is a major realm, comparable to major stages like the mortal realm and the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Taoist storage free immortal. This was the realm that Long Zhan had reached. Just when he reached this realm, he was executed by the Annihilation God Emperor. Tao's spiritual energy began to surge towards Guan, and he saw the lifespan numbers on the lifespan barrier start to jump quickly. Guan still had 300 million years of lifespan, and he continued to spend. One prompt after another kept jumping out, and this time he invested slowly, no longer splurging 100 million years at a time. The late stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. The completion of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. Stop. Just 2 minor realms, Coscu and 120 million years of lifespan. He had 180 million years of lifespan left. The lifespan barrier shouldn't dry him out completely, would it? Gu An's mood was a bit apprehensive. If really pushed to the limit, he could only cancel the lifespan barrier. He certainly couldn't just wait for death. As vast amounts of Tao spiritual energy entered his body, there was another upheaval in the silent destruction domain. Not only Tao spiritual energy, but even the Tao rules of the universe were in upheaval. Almost instantly, those beings who were fighting or exploring in the area were scared into immediate retreat. This upheaval far exceeded the disturbance Gu An had made during his last breakthrough. Even true immortals with divine thoughts were frightened into running away. Gu An soon closed his eyes, immersing himself in the metamorphosis of his being. His Tao seed began to absorb Tao spiritual energy. Even Tao rules integrated into his body, with cause and effect, destiny rules in the majority, followed by soul and reincarnation rules. Although reincarnation rules have always existed, they were not as perfected as his previous lives' mythology portrayed. The reincarnation rules absorb souls, then let them reincarnate anew. This process is elusive and unstoppable. Gu An focused on his Tao seed, which continued to store Tao unique to himself. The path of a cultivator is similar to that of Tao rules, yet different. It's more like a special form of mana. Its execution is also similar to divine skills. Once the Tao seed blossoms in a Tao fruit, Gu An would be able to fight using his own Tao, entering a higher level of combat with even richer methods. The Taoist storage realm would nurture the first life-bound, great divine power. Life-bound, great divine powers cannot be passed on to others, only to be exercised by oneself. As Gu An contemplated his first life-bound, great divine power, he also thought about his immortal path's supreme treasure, wondering if he could combine them. That would be even better. He enjoyed writing books, so decided to create a pen. The life-bound, great divine power would have to be related to the pen. He quickly had an idea, and as his thoughts flowed, the rate at which Tao's spiritual energy and Tao rules powers entered his body accelerated. The influence caused by this also expanded rapidly, soon alarming the great heavenly spirit land. The great cultivators guarding the outer heaven light layer were all startled, standing up one after another. Here it comes again, this time even stronger than before. What exactly is this commotion? Why are even the spiritual energy and rules of the universe in uproar? Unable to capture the source of the anomaly. Everyone be careful. This surely has to do with the heavenly demon. Trouble has piled up one after the other. Could it be the fabled epical tribulation? While the great cultivators were discussing, 2 figures appeared above them, unnoticed by anyone. These were 2 free immortals, one from the Immortal dynasty, the other from the Holy Court. The free immortal from the Immortal dynasty was known as the ancient Immortal Emperor. The Holy Court's free immortal was addressed as Saint Ancestor. The ancient Immortal Emperor had youthful features with white hair, wearing a white robe. His whole being gleamed with white Tao light, looking out of place amidst the cosmic stars. Is this a breakthrough or a formation being set up? The ancient Immortal Emperor asked with a slight furrow in his brows. The Saint Ancestor, dressed in dark Tao robes with black and white hair fluttering slightly, emitted a very strong sense of oppression. His eyes also peered into the depths of the cosmos. It doesn't seem to be either. It's more like some Tao rules are affecting the universe, Saint Ancestor said with a complex tone. Both free immortals lapsed into silence. After a long time, Saint Ancestor looked towards the ancient Immortal Emperor. You wouldn't interfere in the disputes of the younger generations, would you? The ancient immortal emperor turned to look at him. As long as you don't break our agreement, I naturally want either. At those words, the saint ancestor showed a smile and nodded. Let the younger ones fight. Comprehending Tao is what we should be doing. If the heavenly demon really attacks and the great heavenly spirit land faces the threat of destruction, that's when we'll step in. The ancient immortal emperor had no objections. He turned to glance at the great heavenly spirit land with a meaningful look in his eyes. How many lifetimes does Shang Tian still have? The ancient immortal emperor asked. Saint Ancestor shook his head. I have no idea. In the early years, he ceased to trust me and began contemplating the heavenly Tao, setting himself on a solitary and strong path. The ancient immortal emperor fell silent. No more questions asked. His gaze returned to the silent destruction domain. Boom! Gu An's Tao seed completely solidified into a Tao fruit, officially achieving the Taoist storage realm. At the same time, his Tao fruit manifested Tao patterns, the form of his life-bound great divine power. Guan named his self-created life-bound great divine power as the longevity true words, a divine power primarily based on cause and effect, fate deciding the life, death, and destiny of beings with words. There was a profound mystery of laws following speech. Guven continued the charge into the mid-stage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. He opened his eyes and looked toward the attribute panel. Seeing he had 130 million years of lifespan left, his heart somewhat relieved. From this perspective, the lifespan barrier would not exhaust all his lifespan. Time moved swiftly. An ancient hour later, his cultivation level had reached the late stage of the Taoist storage free immortal realm. Just one more minor realm to go. The mana of the late stage of Taoist storage free immortal far exceeded the early stage in both quantity and quality, incomparable to the early stage. An unprecedented sense of power made Gu extremely gratified. He even felt as if the universe couldn't confine him, that he could easily leap out of it. He restrained himself. He felt that terrifying existences were wandering outside the cosmos. Perhaps the annihilation god Emperor, Black Profound Emperor, were waiting for him. He looked into the distance. His divine thought turned invisible, probing far away. Traversing within the silent destruction domain, his divine thought spied many powerful beings. The silent destruction domain still hosted quite a few true immortals and free immortals, though they were very scattered, equivalent to a realm as large as the great heavenly spirit land, hardly housing a single free immortal. Crossing vast distances, he saw another great heaven and earth. He didn't linger, continuing onward. Over the following period, he encountered 3 other great heaven and earths, all enveloped by the silent destruction domain. As his divine thought neared its limit, he quickly retracted it and concentrated on breaking through. The nearest great heaven and earth to the great heavenly spirit land was extremely distant. It would take true immortals years just to travel there, passing through many areas of spatial distortion along the way, which cannot be crossed by mere flight. Gu An's focus returned to his body, observing his own Tao fruit. He had an intuition that once the Tao fruit bloomed, a new realm would open up. He looked forward to that day. At that moment, Guan seemed to sense something and looked up. In the deep darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes appeared, the same eyes he had seen during his previous breakthrough. Unexpectedly, they had appeared again. They were larger than the great heavenly spirit land eyeballs, showing how immense those eyes truly were. Guan fixed his gaze on these giant eyes, wishing to see through them. Chapter 365, Mysterious Reincarnation. Fate determining Pen Gu and compared his memory with the eyes before him, and determined they were not the eyes of the Black Profound Emperor. As for whether they were the eyes of the Annihilation God Emperor, he couldn't decide. Long Zhan had never actually seen the true body of the Annihilation God Emperor and was pinched to death by a hand that the Annihilation God Emperor had reached out. For the time being, He could not see through the cultivation level of this pair of huge eyes, but they indeed gave people an uneasy and oppressive feeling. Relying on the lifespan barrier, Guin wasn't afraid of being detected by the other party. He had originally thought that the eyes would disappear after watching for a while, but that was not the case. He suddenly saw two figures flying out from the midst of those giant eyes, and they swept past above Gu at an extremely fast speed, heading towards the great heavenly spirit land. Although they passed above Guin, they were actually very distant from him. Guin turned his head to look, his eyebrows furrowing and a worried expression in his eyes. He could sense that these two figures were just from the free immortal realm, but free immortals could easily obliterate the lives in the great heavenly spirit land. He still needed to make a breakthrough and didn't want to act rashly. Moreover, those giant eyes were still there. If he made a move, would he expose himself? Guin saw that free immortals from both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court had appeared, and could only hope that they would be able to stop this mysterious enemy. However, the moment those two figures that emerged from the giant eyes reached the edge of the silent destruction domain, they suddenly disappeared. Guin keenly caught that they had entered into the reincarnation rules, and then they entered the light layer of outer heaven in a manner incomprehensible to cultivators before their presence completely vanished. During the entire process, even those two free immortals were unable to detect them. Is this reincarnation? Guin turned his head back and saw the pair of giant eyes slowly disappearing into the darkness as if they had never appeared. Forget it. First, make a breakthrough. Guin raised his right hand, using his powerful mana to condense the Immortal Path's supreme treasure he desired. Free immortals could create Immortal Path's supreme treasures. Naturally, it was even easier for free immortals in a higher realm. While his cultivation level rose continuously, Guin quickly shaped the form of the Immortal Path's supreme treasure, then infused his own Tao into it, forming a restriction structure that stabilized the Dharma treasure. Time continued to move on. After a little half an ancient hour had passed, Guin finally reached the perfect realm of the free immortals. At this moment, he felt a great sense of power, as if he could reach to the heavens and pierce through the earth. His right hand was still shaping the Immortal Path's supreme treasure, divine light shining upon his face, and the golden patterns on his forehead gleamed, making his face appear even more majestic. He seemed to be beholding a piece of heaven and earth, his gaze profound. He glanced at the attribute panel and saw he still had 70 million years of lifespan. He did not rush to lift the lifespan barrier, but continued to fashion the Immortal Path supreme treasure. With the breakthrough completed, the rate at which the lifespan barrier consumed his lifespan abruptly decreased. The turmoil in the silent destruction domain also began to slow, bringing relief to the creatures hiding all around. It wasn't just the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land who were afraid. The heavenly demons in the silent destruction domain also trembled, as there were tales of calamity everywhere, which is the creatures' worry about the unknown. Faced with unknown dangers, it was easy for them to associate these fears with the heavenly will and calamity. Waiting for the Tao spiritual energy's turbulence to subside and Tao rule's surges to cease, the silent destruction domain sank into deathly silence, extremely oppressive. Another 2 ancient hours passed. The Immortal Path's supreme treasure in Gu An's hand finally took shape, but to become a true Immortal Path supreme treasure, one last step was required: to infuse it with his soul's essence. The Immortal Path supreme treasure was not just a powerful Dharma treasure, but also unique. The reason it could endure eternally was that the essence of the free immortal's power maintained this characteristic. Guin suddenly felt a very special force manifesting in the cosmos, a force similar to that in the layer of light outside of heaven. His Immortal Path supreme treasure seemed to want to be recognized by this force, yearning for it to be branded upon itself. Could this be the heavenly Tao rules? Guin was secretly alarmed. The heavenly Tao rules always seemed more threatening to him than the Tao rules, mainly because the heavenly Tao rules were too perfect, almost as if they had a will of their own. No, He couldn't let the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure make contact with the heavenly Tao rules. Guven forcibly suppressed the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure in his hand. After a good while, the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure no longer had the desire to approach the heavenly Tao rules. The divine light dissipated. A white brush with black bristles appeared in his hand, looking quite ordinary. Golden characters gradually emerged on the shaft of the brush. The fate-determining pen. Guan's mouth curved upward, very pleased with himself. He still had over 60 million years of lifespan. This breakthrough had been perilous, but fortunately, he had succeeded. He stood up and disappeared on the spot in an instant. With a single step, he arrived at the edges of Mystic Valley. Following that, he stepped out of the woods into a world where snow fluttered all around. The snow melted rapidly wherever he went. He stopped moving, concealing the aura of his Tao fruit before continuing on his way. Snowflakes fell on him, and his figure gradually was obscured, as if returning to the mundane. 30 minutes later, Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley. He stepped down from the transmission array platform and then headed towards the chess-playing area. This day, Nine-Finger Divine Lord was once again trouncing the less skilled. His opponent was still Shinshinzi. Shinshinzi held the romance of the three kingdoms in one hand and a chess piece in the other, his eyebrows tightly furrowed, indecisive about his move. There were more than a dozen people surrounding them, including Medicine Valley disciples and great cultivators from the Supreme Sect, all of whom were discussing in low voices. Guan approached them, playing with the fate-determining pen in his hand. Yu Yingying nudged closer, asking curiously, "Did you just buy that brush?" This brush was larger than ordinary, the size of a flute, which piqued Yu Yingying's curiosity even more. "Yeah, bought it this morning from an old senior. He said it's an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure," Guan replied with a smile. Upon hearing this, Yu Yingying rolled her eyes with disbelief, asking, "Since it's an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, how many spirit stones did it cost you?" 10 top-grade spirit stones. Pretty expensive, right? Huh. Yu Yingying's gaze was like one looking at a fool, the scorn clear in her laughter. Guan extended the fate-determining pen towards her, saying, 100 top-grade spirit stones, I'll sell it to you, taking a little loss. Yu Yingying slapped his hand away with a huff, retorting, "I'm not as foolish as you, I won't buy it. But if you gift it to me, I could consider it." Quite the character, wanting something for nothing. Guan rolled his eyes at Yu Yingying, then continued his walk towards Nine-Finger Divine Lord and the others. Yu Yingying followed, eyeing Guan closely. She had sensed changes in Guan's temperament multiple times. She always felt that Guan was hiding a secret. Could this guy really have taken Sword Venerable Fudao as his teacher? Guan made his way through the crowd to stand behind Shinshinzi, with Yu Yingying following close behind. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, sitting opposite, lifted his gaze towards Guan, also noticing the pen in his hand, and smiled. "That's a decent-looking pen you have there. May I take a look?" Guan twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand and said, 100 top-grade spirit stones, they'll sell it to you. This might actually be an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. An Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Nine-Finger Divine Lord found this amusing, having just overheard Guan's conversation with Yu Yingying and initially thought Guan was simply teasing her. He did not expect the kid actually believed it. Pretending to be serious, he looked at the fate-determining pen and said, "Oh, it really seems like it." Guan's expression immediately became awkward. Did he recognize it? No. He would have to pat him on the shoulder tonight and use the great imprisoned soul immortal technique to erase this memory. Chapter 366. Heavenly Demon Turbulence. Nine-Finger Divine Lord wasn't sure what Guan was thinking. Seeing the change in Guan's expression, he feared the young man might actually believe it. So he said, "I was just kidding. With your cultivation level, if it really were an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, you would be reduced to ashes upon contact." Guan, upon hearing this, relaxed inwardly, but his face contorted as if he couldn't bear to accept this fact. He looked down, Shun Shinzi had already fallen into a dead end and was struggling in vain. "Let me do it." Guin patted Shinzi on the shoulder and said. Shinzi took a deep breath and then stood up. Nine-Finger Divine Lord began to pick up pieces. Picking up the black pieces, he stared at Guin with a smile. "My chess skills have improved. You need to be careful this time." Guin sat down, twirling the fate-determining pen in his hand, and said, "In chess, I cannot lose." Yu Yingying, standing by, had a peculiar look on her face. For some reason, she felt Gu An's statement was very imposing. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord made the first move, and the chess game began. The spectators were engrossed in watching, and Shinzi also wanted to learn from Gu An's moves. Confident, Nine-Finger Divine Lord played quickly, not using his usual tactic of wearing down the old-timers. Half an ancient hour later, Guin stood up. Under the admiring gaze of the onlookers, he left, followed quickly by Yu Yingying. Shinzi looked at the chessboard, his face showing admiration. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, however, had a dark expression, staring intently at the chessboard. For some reason, he felt the gap between him and Guin widening, and he couldn't understand why. Guin was planning to go see Long Qing, but Yu Yingying was following him. He could feel that Yu Yingying sensed his change, but he wasn't panicked. Now in the great heavenly spirit land, no one could see through his cultivation level. Even if his demeanor had changed drastically, he was still in the nascent soul realm. So neither Nine-Finger Divine Lord nor Shinzi paid attention to his change. The two started chatting casually. Guin brought up the Star Sea congregations. Xintiani had already returned to the Supreme Sect, and Hao and Leah had also left the Star Sea congregations. Although there was still cooperation between the Supreme Sect and the Star Sea congregations, the latter was rarely mentioned within the Supreme Sect. Yu Yingying came from the Star Sea congregations, but since coming to the Supreme Sect, she had never gone back. In the past, Guin was wary her heavenly demon identity would cause trouble, but now it didn't matter. The Silent Destruction Domain was full of heavenly demons, and Yu Yingying's karma was not as significant as Long Qing's. "Do you want to cultivate?" Guin suddenly asked. The reason Yu Yingying couldn't break through was due to the suppression from her heavenly demon karma. Her past life might have been afraid of being discovered, so her reincarnation couldn't break through to a higher realm. With Gu An's current capabilities, he could erase the karmic restrictions within her. Yu Yingying glanced at Guin and said, "Of course I want to, but my identity is special. I cannot cultivate. What if I could help you?" When Yu Yingying heard this, her eyes filled with depth. She shook her head and said, "No need. I will just live out this life honestly and reincarnate sooner. I don't want to become a disaster." After hearing this, Guin fell into silence, no longer speaking. "Why don't you ask me why I think I am a disaster?" Yu Yingying said discontentedly. "This guy is quite good at talking to others, so why is it always awkward with her?" Guin turned his head to look at her, asking, "Is there a need to ask?" This rhetorical question annoyed Yu Yingying so much that she lunged at him, arms flailing. The two playfully scuffled all the way to a forest where the grass was covered in snow. Long Qing was practicing his fist technique in the snow. Long Qing, 82 years old, looked very young and robust. Each punch he threw carried great force. Seeing Guin and Yu Yingying arrive, Long Qing revealed a smile and greeted them. Before he was 4 years old, an Xian had taken care of him, and after that, it was Yu Yingying who raised him. In his heart, Yu Yingying was like a mother to him, whom he respected deeply, and Guin even felt that in his heart, Yu Yingying held the highest esteem. "Master, Godmother, how is this set of fist techniques?" Long Qing said, then began throwing punches. Guin and Yu Yingying stood side by side, watching his technique. The whistling of his robes swishing filled the forest. Yu Yingying watched Long Qing's form, her face filled with pride. In her heart, Long Qing was also her child. Since Long Qing's arrival, she was no longer melancholic and lived every day fully, looking forward to the day Long Qing would make a name for himself. Guin, on the other hand, compared Long Qing with others of his age, such as Yang Jian. In terms of physical strength, Long Qing was a notch above, but his reaction speed was slower than Yang Jian's, perhaps related to cultivation level. For Long Qing to have such strength without spiritual power was already remarkable. After Long Qing finished demonstrating his fist technique, he turned around and approached Guan and Yu Ying, raising his fist. I feel like I can already spar with those in the nascent soul realm. Master, how about I spar with you? Seeing his spirited appearance, Guan couldn't help but laugh. Yu Ying glared at Long Qing. Don't be disrespectful. Are you challenging your master? Is it because I haven't hit you for a long while, and you forgot my teachings? Hearing this, Long Qing quickly explained, it's just a spar, stopping as soon as contact is made. Mainly because there are no other cultivators in the nascent soul realm in the Medicine Valley, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stir up trouble in the inner sect. It's fine, come on. Guan smiled. Hearing this made Long Qing beam, and he quickly thanked him. Yu Ying looked at Guan, nervously saying, this kid doesn't know his own strength. You need to be careful. Guan shrugged. Please, I was once a Golden List genius. The Golden List and Celestial List established by the Supreme Sect were still authoritative. Each generation of Golden List geniuses attracted geniuses from all over the continent to compete, although Guan never participated again. Hearing this, Yu Ying immediately stepped aside. Long Qing stood about 10 paces away, warming up. He was very excited. He had long wanted to test Guan's capabilities. In the Third Medicine Valley, there had always been a legend that Guan was formidable. Although he couldn't compare to Immortal Path great cultivators like the Nine-Finger Divine Lord or Shinxinzi, in his own realm, Guan was undoubtedly strong. Guan held the fate-determining pen, waving Long Qing over. Long Qing immediately advanced, lunging toward Gu and in one swift step. So fast, Yu Ying couldn't keep up with Long Qing's speed, and her pupils dilated dramatically. Long Qing threw a punch, like a sea dragon emerging from the abyss, with an explosive sonic boom. Guan reached out with his hand, using the fate-determining pen to block Long Qing's fist so it couldn't reach his chest. Long Qing's face changed dramatically. His right arm couldn't push any further. At that moment, he felt Guan's formidable presence, as unshakable as a mountain. His biggest reliance was his physical strength, and when his strength was far inferior to his opponent's, how could he not panic? Guan's mouth curved into a smile, his right hand holding the fate-determining pen suddenly lifted, lifting Long Qing into the mid-air. He then swiftly raised his leg and kicked. Bang! Long Qing's chest was struck. His eyes bulged, his consciousness briefly blank. Everything happened very quickly, and throughout the process, Yu Ying didn't see how Guan had made his move. She only saw Long Qing lunging at Guan, then being kicked away. By the time she reacted, Long Qing had crashed into a large tree, shaking the accumulated snow off the branches, nearly burying him. Yu Ying glared at Guan and said, "Why did you hit so hard?" With that, she quickly ran toward Long Qing. Guan, feeling helpless, thought to himself, "You were worried I'd get hurt by him earlier, so why do you get to play the good person now?" With Yu Ying's help, Long Qing sat up. He opened his eyes, looking ahead at Guan. For some reason, he suddenly felt awe. Guan's figure in his eyes seemed invincible. Even his second master, Shinxinzi, couldn't evoke this feeling in him. You still need more practice, Qing-er. I'm waiting for your next challenge. Guan's laughter reached Long Qing's ears, pulling him out of his reverent mood. He took a deep breath and nodded vigorously, his arrogance completely dissipated. The winter snow continued to fall. As Long Qing dwelled on his defeat, the great cultivators from outer heaven were deeply worried. With the cessation of the anomalies in the silent destruction domain, the heavenly demons could no longer hold back and began to approach the great heavenly spirit land. They speculated that the disturbances in the silent destruction domain were caused by the great heavenly spirit land, while the great heavenly spirit land suspected they were plotting something. In the days that followed, more and more heavenly demons flew out of the silent destruction domain, reaching the cosmic region near the great heavenly spirit land, confronting the great cultivators on the outer layer of light, clearly demarcated. Time quickly advanced to the end of the year. On this day, Guan was sparring with Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai in the outer world cave. The three demons attacked him together. Although they couldn't gain the upper hand, each was agile and their spells were impressive. Guan, holding the fate-determining pen, easily blocked and dodged their every spell. He was secretly pleased. Although the three demons were always in the Ninshu Cave and Outer World Cave, their strength had been steadily improving. Any one of them could easily defeat Long Qing alone. Together, they could even withstand the Unification Realm. The strongest, Tian Yaoer, had already reached the 7th level of the Void Crossing Realm. Apart from her exceptional talent, this was also due to Gu An's investment in elixirs. Tian Yaoer stopped and said, "Let's stop here for today." Tian Qing and Tian Bai followed suit, panting and sweating, their foreheads and hair damp. They looked at Guan with adoration, immediately rushing to him, each hugging an arm, and began to praise how amazing their master was. Guan was already accustomed to their actions. These were the demons he had raised. There was no helping it. He had to indulge them. Tian Yaoer approached Guan and said, "Master, lately I have been feeling restless. Can you help me take a look?" Guan asked in surprise, "How should I check?" Tian Yaoer raised her hands, grasping the front of her robe, preparing to disrobe. "Stop, don't joke around. Tell me more about your feelings," Guan quickly said. He suspected these three demons were plotting something against him. Tian Yaoer pouted, then talked about her recent feelings. During cultivation, her qi blood was easily agitated, making it difficult for her to calm down and cultivate. She even felt something calling her, which made her uneasy. After listening, Guan looked up, his pupils reflecting a sun, within which a phoenix was hidden. As the heavenly demons approached in large numbers, the 7 suns outside were also disturbed. The mysterious creatures within each awakened, watching the heavenly demons, ready for battle. Chapter 367. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court. Heavenly Phoenix Mountain had always been associated with legends of the phoenix, and Tian Yaoer's original form was a special bird, harboring a mysterious flame within her body, which led Guan to speculate about her connection with the legendary phoenix. "Master, what are you looking at?" Tian Yaoer asked nervously. Tian Qing and Tian Bai looked up at the sky and saw nothing, which made them anxious. Could there be something invisible to them that had infiltrated the outer world cave? Gu An's gaze shifted to Tian Yaoer. He saw the causal links related to the phoenix on her, which, while faint, were indeed there, proving that Tian Yaoer was a descendant of the phoenix. He was not afraid of the phoenix coming after them because the causal connection was too weak. Guan had been unable to detect it even in the divine thought true immortal realm before, indicating that Tian Yaoer was separated from the phoenix by a vast expanse of time. That phoenix was just a carefree, primordial immortal in terms of cultivation. Guan spoke, "Do not worry, I was just looking at your ancestor. The reason for your unease is because your ancestor is restless, and it's affecting you through your bloodline." Ancestor? With both her parents deceased, Tian Yaoer had long regarded Guan as her only support. Hearing now of the existence of an ancestor, how could she remain indifferent? She opened her mouth, but eventually fell silent. Curious, Tian Qing asked, "Master, who is her ancestor, and what is their cultivation level?" Tian Bai also looked at Guan, her large eyes filled with anticipation. Guan counter-asked, "Do you still remember the legend of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain?" At this remark, Tian Yaoer's expression changed. Anticipation, nervousness, resentment, various emotions flashed through her eyes. For this moment, she seemed unlike her usual naive and romantic self. Could the miss be a descendant of the phoenix? Tian Bai gasped, eyes wide. Guan smiled and nodded, saying, "However, the bloodline has been diluted over who knows how many generations, and the descendants of that phoenix are beyond count. He wasn't joking. Following the causal thread of the phoenix, he saw the myriad causalities throughout the world related to it, with countless descendants like Tian Yaoer, even the ones in the sea. After hearing these words, Tian Yaoer seemed to shed a burden, visibly relieved, and a smile appeared on her face. Guin looked at her and asked with a smile, "Were you afraid just now?" Tian Yaoer nodded. "I don't want any ancestor. I just want to be with you, Master. When I was imprisoned by the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, when I was hunted, no ancestor showed up." Knowing about the existence of an ancestor, her heart was more filled with worry and fear. She was afraid that Guin might send her to that ancestor. Guin moved forward, rubbed her head, and laughed. "What are you thinking? How could I possibly abandon you? Even if the phoenix came for you, I wouldn't agree. I've raised you for so many years. How could it be for nothing?" Hearing this, Tian Yaoer's smile brightened. In reality, if she wanted to leave, Guin wouldn't stop her. Now he was powerful enough not to fear exposing the outer world cave. But he feared that saying he was willing to let Tian Yaoer go would instead make her anxious. Tianqing and Tian Bai didn't think too much. They were more curious about how powerful the phoenix was. "Don't ask anymore. The phoenix is definitely powerful. Be careful, or it might invade your dreams and devour you." Guin hummed, frightening the two, and they dared not ask further questions. It wasn't until noon that Guin left. He went to the North Sea Mountain, where, as the mountain god, he met with Sage Xian Miao. Sage Xian Miao had grown accustomed to a life away from worldly affairs, spending his days tending flowers and herbs, content and at peace, occasionally discussing the paths with passing cultivators, a life he found pleasant enough. When Guin, transformed into a small mountain god figure, approached him, he was no longer as constrained as he had been hundreds of years ago. He stood up and bowed. Guin sat on the eaves and asked, "Have you encountered any confusion in your recent cultivation?" Though the lifespan offerings from the mountain god temple weren't much, Sage Xian Miao's sincerity touched him, so he was willing to give guidance on cultivation. Sage Xian Miao shook his head and smiled. "Not at the moment." He looked up at the mountain god on the eaves, hesitated for a moment, and asked, "In your view, do the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court qualify as immortals?" This question he had long wanted to ask, but feared offending. The methods by which the founder of the Immortal Dynasty bestowed blessings on all beings had shocked him, overturning his imagination. In his view, not even a mountain god could achieve that. Now that he heard the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were about to go to war, it left him with complex feelings. How could immortals quarrel over power and profit like mortals? If the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were not truly immortals, but merely powerful beings, why should humans be stronger than immortals? Various confusions took root in Sage Xian Miao's mind, making him even more eager for answers. Guin, legs crossed, looked down at Sage Xian Miao. His eyes, hidden beneath the mask, were so profound as he asked, "What do you think an immortal should be like?" "Like you, protecting the common folk without being swayed by worldly interests." "If that's the case, why ask a question to which you already know the answer?" Sage Xian Miao frowned, unsure how to express himself. Guin asked, "Do you think they are stronger than me, making you unsure of who the true immortal is?" Sage Xian Miao nodded, watching Guin nervously, fearful of offending the mountain god. "Have you considered what it means to cultivate with me? If you're so fixated on immortals, why not think about becoming one yourself?" Faced with the mountain god's inquiry, Sage Xian Miao's eyes widened, and he asked in astonishment, "How could I possibly become an immortal? Your confusion is the confusion of the entire world. What you see might not be correct. The world is waiting for the true immortal to appear. Why couldn't you be that immortal?" Guin said meaningfully. In fact, he was bluffing, wanting to keep Sage Xian Miao focused on cultivation. Over the years, whenever someone came by, Sage Xian Miao would zealously preach about the mountain god's power and compassion, leading to more and more people calling mentally for the mountain god's help when in distress. Though Guin paid no attention, those people's hopes formed a source of power similar to chief fortune, which he called desire power. Perhaps the true path for an immortal required walking the way of desire power to truly feel the suffering of all beings. However, Guin's pursuit wasn't immortality. He sought longevity. If sage Xian Miao so desired to be an immortal, Guin wouldn't mind nurturing him to become a true immortal. To become an immortal, the most crucial aspect is the ability to save the common folk. Simply having a good heart isn't enough. After listening to Guin, sage Xian Miao fell silent, his heartbeat accelerating. Guin leaped down from the eaves, walked out of the courtyard, and went to pick medicinal herbs, with sage Xian Miao hurriedly following. Can someone like me really become an immortal? Sage Xian Miao asked cautiously. Without turning his head, Guin replied, "Immortality isn't about high status. With the right intention, it can be achieved." Sage Xian Miao's expression changed, deeply moved by these words. After a long time, the two returned to the courtyard. Guin was about to leave when sage Xian Miao suddenly looked up at him on the eaves and said, "Mountain God, I've figured it out. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court." Guin stopped walking, turned his head to look at him, and asked in surprise, "The heavenly court? That's the celestial authority from Journey to the West." In the book, the celestial beings fight demons and control the weather for the sake of the common folk. Although the heavenly court in the story has its flaws, at least they care about the common folk. Sage Xian Miao spoke earnestly, and by the end, his facial expression turned determined, his eyes gleaming brightly. Guin smiled and said nothing more, then disappeared from the eaves. Sage Xian Miao, filled with grand ambitions, sat cross-legged, deciding to cultivate diligently from now on, not to disappoint the mountain god's faith in him. Spring arrived. This new year was livelier than usual because the Supreme Sect invited many schools to join the Spring Festival celebration. The Third Medicine Valley was festively decorated and noisy, all disciples wearing smiles. As night fell, on a temporary stage, disciples took turns performing, keeping the festive atmosphere lively and ebullient. Guin swayed his bowl of wine, his gaze inevitably drifting towards the night sky. Stars filled the sky, glittering and beautiful, as if even the heavens were celebrating. Meanwhile, in outer heaven, the tension between the sects of the great heavenly spirit land and the heavenly demons was escalating. Guin scanned the area. There were more than 1,000,000 heavenly demons, the weakest of them in the loose immortal realm, including 2 divine, thought true immortals. This was why the great heavenly spirit land dared not make a move rashly. He saw cultivators from the holy court negotiating with a divine, thought true, immortal realm heavenly demon. It seemed that the heavenly demons were the stronger side. The current holy court was not as formidable as the legend suggested. The heavenly demons were also testing the stance of Xingtian, while the holy court side was evasive, clearly hiding something. According to Guin's judgment, a great battle between the two sides would soon erupt. Guin had no intention of getting involved, given the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were handling things. Having just made a breakthrough, he wasn't eager to collect lifespans and preferred to lay low. Long Qin came over, clamoring to have a drinking contest with his master. How could Guin indulge him? He welcomed all challengers. The wine in Medicine Valley was spiritual wine, and even cultivators could get drunk if they had too much. It wasn't until late into the night that the Third Medicine Valley finally quieted down. The next morning, Guin left the Third Medicine Valley. He arrived at Mystic Valley, and after chatting with the disciples for 30 minutes, he entered the 8 Sina Caves. From a distance, he saw a huge creature lying under the green vine tree. It was a black sea dragon. Sky Dragon, Void Crossing Realm 5th Level 387/8000/18,000. Guin looked at the Sky Dragon's maximum lifespan and felt slightly disappointed. It seemed the Sky Dragon had not encountered much fortune over the years. The Sea Dragon lying under the tree sensed something, opened its eyes, and upon seeing Guan, rapidly raised its head. "Master!" The sea dragon cried excitedly, and then rushed towards Guan, stirring up a gust of wind that shook the surrounding flora. Its body quickly shrank to only 2 meters in length, trying to jump into Guan's arms. But Guan pressed down its dragon head with a fate-determining pin, keeping it at bay. "Why are you here?" Guan asked. The sea dragon chuckled. "Ancient Sky Sect came to participate in the Supreme Sect Spring Festival, and I sneaked along, wanting to come see you." Guan, unamused, said, "You are the holy beast of the Ancient Sky Sect. Do you think you could really sneak along without notice?" He had already sensed someone approaching the 8 scenic caves. He wasn't angry, even somewhat excited. Chapter 368, Eliminating the Backer. I am now at the Void Crossing realm level. They won't be able to detect me. Sky Dragon said proudly. Despite being over 300 years old, its voice had not lost its youthful tone, sounding like a young boy. Guan did not argue, nor did he mention that someone was sneaking into the 8 scenic caves. He sized up Sky Dragon and said, "Are you accustomed to staying with the Ancient Sky Sect? If you want to come back, I can talk to the Supreme Sect." With the current power of the Supreme Sect, wanting to take the holy beast from the Ancient Sky Sect would be no difficult task. Sky Dragon replied, "It's quite good. I want to come back. The Supreme Sect is much stronger than the Ancient Sky Sect. The status I would have upon my return would certainly not compare to my former one." Guan smiled to himself, silently thinking what a foolish dragon it was, and thought to himself, then just stay in the Ancient Sky Sect. He would not go out of his way to reveal his strength to Sky Dragon. This was also his attitude toward his disciples. Only those who sincerely and insistently wished to stay by his side would he cultivate seriously. Just at that moment, footsteps were heard from the distant cave entrance, startling both Guan and Sky Dragon as they turned to look. They saw a figure emerge from the cave mouth, a man in black with handsome features, holding a folding fan in his hand and with a palm-sized black spider perched on his shoulder. He looked at Guan and Sky Dragon from afar, a mocking smile on his face, and his gaze then shifted to the green vine tree, his eyes betraying a greedy light. Although Guan could see through his cultivation level, he still could not help but send out a lifespan detection towards him. Demon Chaser, Mystic Heart Realm, second layer 2107/4600/7500, a 2,000-year-old monster. Guan looked forward to his next move while maintaining a vigilant expression on his face. "Is it you? How did you?" Sky Dragon's eyes widened in astonishment. Guan saw through cause and effect, destiny, and noted the intersection between Sky Dragon and Demon Chaser. Demon Chaser had hidden his identity and joined the Ancient Sky Sect, had visited Sky Dragon, and at that time, Demon Chaser had disguised himself as a nascent soul-level cultivator, treating Sky Dragon with utmost respect. "If it weren't for me, do you think you could have come here?" Demon Chaser sneered disparagingly. He stepped forward, the aura of the Mystic Heart Realm erupting, startling Sky Dragon, who quickly revealed its true form to stand in front of Guan. "You are no match for me, and if we start fighting, this place will be exposed." Demon Chaser said coldly, his gaze fixated on the green vine tree, his eyes becoming brighter and brighter. "Who exactly are you? How can you possess such a cultivation level?" Sky Dragon asked through gritted teeth. The Void Crossing Realm and the Mystic Heart Realm were separated by the Unification Realm, and facing Demon Chaser, Sky Dragon felt immense pressure. Guan then began to probe Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Demon Chaser's background was rather profound, with a Mahayana Realm master who was seriously injured, hiding in a cave. His master came from a demon sect at sea, with the highest cultivator within reaching the loose, immortal realm. Incidentally, Demon Chaser's martial master. His loose, immortal martial master was a traitor from an ancient family lineage. Although a traitor, his brother was still present, and the two shared a close relationship. Demon Chaser's martial master often sought his brother's help when encountering insurmountable troubles. And the strongest person from this ancient family line reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. It's worth mentioning that this family's chief fortune was related to another great heaven and earth that Guin detected during his previous breakthrough. That is to say, the origin of this family line came from another great heaven and earth. Guin was not fearful. That great heaven and earth was not substantially stronger than the great heavenly spirit land. Moreover, they were far apart. He merely marveled at the complexity of Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Becoming enemies with Demon Chaser could easily entangle one in a series of cause and effect grievances. Defeat the underling, then the superior, and after the superior, the elder. Not long after, Demon Chaser approached Sky Dragon and said, "Kneel down, submit to me, this is your only way to live." His tone was incredibly domineering, brooking no dissent. Guin stepped to the side to let Demon Chaser see him, playing with the fate-determining pen in his right hand, and inquired with an almost smiling tone, "What about me? Do I have a way to live?" Demon Chaser looked at Guin, and Guin's smile annoyed him. He felt provoked. Demon Chaser has developed hostility towards you, seeks to kill you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? Seeing the prompt before him, Guin couldn't help but shake his head with a chuckle. His movement caused a chill to flash in Demon Chaser's eyes, who then coldly said, You must die. Perfect to feed the green vine tree." Guin asked, "How do you know the green vine tree feeds on flesh and blood? What is your relationship with the Thousand Autumn Pavilion?" He knew the truth, of course, but wanted to ask one more question. After all, there was no hurry at the moment. Demon Chaser suddenly transformed into a wisp of demonic chi and dissipated, startling Sky Dragon greatly. It looked around instinctively and then saw Demon Chaser appear beside Guin. Demon Chaser's eyes widened in disbelief, his right hand trembling as it was blocked by the fate-determining pen. He was not only unable to harm Guin, but also unable to retreat, as an invisible force had rooted him to the spot. How is this possible? Who exactly are you?" Demon Chaser asked, his voice quivering with fear. Guin looked down on him and asked, "Since I can't grant you a way to live, do you have any last words?" The sentence sent shivers down Demon Chaser's spine. "If you dare kill me, my master will not let you go." Demon Chaser gritted his teeth. Guin curiously asked, "Your master is just at the Mayana realm, and he's gravely wounded too. How can he not let me go?" As soon as he spoke, Demonic Chaser's pupils shook violently, and fear and despair enveloped his heart. He seemed to remember something, hastily saying, "My master comes from an immortal path sect. Spare me, and well, call it quits. Demon Chaser harbors deep-seated hatred toward you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? The hostility has even increased." Guin looked at the prompt in front of him, completely unmoved, as he had no intention of sparing Demon Chaser. "Now, so be it, more deaths to come." Guin withdrew his arm, a terrifying force pressing Demon Chaser to kneel before him with a thud. Sky Dragon gaped, staring blankly at Guin. Memories from a long time ago surfaced in its mind. Guin was holding the fate-determining pen, waving it through the air, and with one stroke, a golden trail appeared before him, floating in the air. The golden light shone on Demon Chaser's face, leaving it completely pale. Guin wrote unhurriedly, forming the character for death. As the final stroke completed, Demon Chaser's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Guin with a mixture of shock and fear, and asked through clenched teeth, "What have you done to me?" "You have successfully taken 67 years of lifespan from Lingchuanjinren, Mayana Realm, 9 layers. You have successfully taken 380 years of lifespan from Zhonglu, Loose Immortal Realm, 4th layer. You have successfully taken 512 years of lifespan from Su Tianqing, Loose Immortal Realm, 7th layer." One prompt after another appeared before Guin, and he glanced at Demon Chaser and said indifferently, "I haven't done anything to you. I've simply erased all the backing you could call upon." Demon Chaser's eyes bulged, and he yelled almost manically, "What kind of joke is this? Before he could finish speaking, an indescribable panic enveloped Demon Chaser's heart. For some reason, he suddenly felt as though he was abandoned by the entire world, a panic unlike any other, an unspeakable palpitation that agitated his thoughts. Chapter 369. Descending into the world, watching the Demon Chaser about to crumble, Guin couldn't be bothered to explain. With a wave of the fate-determining pen, he turned the Demon Chaser to ashes that rapidly vanished. Throughout the process, the Sky Dragon didn't speak a word, just staring blankly at Guin until the Demon Chaser disappeared. Only then did it snap back to reality. Swallowing hard, it looked at Guin with eyes filled with fear. Guin's strength had exceeded its imagination, and it hadn't been in Guin's company for many years. Reuniting after a long separation and witnessing such methods, how could it not be afraid? Seeing its expression, Guin found it amusing. He suddenly became interested and stared expressionlessly at the Sky Dragon. The look in his eyes made the Sky Dragon even more afraid, causing it to back away subconsciously. About today's affair, Guin said hauntingly, deliberately suspending his tone. The Sky Dragon hurriedly said, "I definitely won't speak of it. Please trust me, master." Guin twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand, his lips turning up into a smile. "This pen of mine can kill people from a very, very far distance. If you break our agreement, you understand what I mean." The Sky Dragon, terrified, its dragon body trembling, kept giving assurances. Guin turned and walked toward the green vine tree, his main purpose for taking action today being to confirm whether the fate-determining pen could indeed seize lifespan. The result was very satisfying, just as he had wished. The fate-determining pen was his own creation, not employing any external object. In the future, seizing lifespans with the fate-determining pen would be even easier for him. Dealing with the Demon Chaser this time, Guin had slain over 100, all directly related to the Demon Chaser. Sooner or later, they would be entangled in this web of cause and effect. Guin essentially allowed them to meet their end early. This was the way of cause and effect. To be able to glimpse into the process of the evolution of all things was also the foundation of participating in the way of destiny. The way of cause and effect was profound and unfathomable. Guin had just begun to delve into it and already possessed the power that not even gods or demons could predict. This action had earned him over 40,000 years of lifespan, which, to him at this moment, wasn't significant. The Sky Dragon shrank in size. Cautiously approaching Guin, "Master, you're the sword venerable Fudao of the Supreme Sect, right?" the Sky Dragon asked cautiously. Without turning back, Guin said, "The less you know, the safer you'll be. Understand?" Startled by these words, the Sky Dragon nodded hastily. Together, the man and the dragon reached the green vine tree. The tree extended 2 vines that began to knead Guin's shoulders, causing the Sky Dragon to stare in bewilderment. 2 ancient hours later, Guin and the Sky Dragon left the 8 Sina Caves. Guin headed toward Tinya Valley, while the Sky Dragon went to look for the cultivators of the Ancient Sky Sect. Within the bustling Supreme Sect, no one knew that a mystic Heart Realm cultivator had been reduced to dust and smoke. After the spring festival, Guin's life returned to peace. He traveled between various medicine valleys, occasionally bringing an Xian to Mortal World Peak or visiting Yilan and Jinshin on his own. The sect that had their medicinal herbs mysteriously harvested gradually returned to calmness. Even the Holy Court, unable to find the cause, had to give up, especially since such incidents hadn't reoccurred lately. Although he had reached the level of a Taoist hidden immortal, Guin never ceased his pursuit of development. He kept expanding the collection of high-rank, medicinal herbs inside his outer world cave. Time flew swiftly. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. The number of heavenly demons outside had exceeded 5 million. They prowled the universe as if they wanted to tear the great heavenly spirit land to shreds. The Holy Court, Immortal Dynasty, and various other sects were all on high alert, positioned everywhere, not giving the heavenly demons a chance to infiltrate. On a massive meteor, Two men ensnared in a dark aura stood shoulder to shoulder. They looked very similar, both dressed in black scale armor, though one stood taller. The holy court remained silent. It appears our information is true. Could the previous disturbance have been the reincarnation of Saint Heaven? Highly likely. Within the great heavenly spirit land, only Saint Heaven would have such capacity. If that's the case, then this is a rare opportunity. Our goal is that great emperor we mustn't forget. The two men in black armor spoke in hushed tones, their eyes fixed on the great heavenly spirit land, brimming with hostility. As they were talking, they suddenly noticed something and turned their heads in unison to see a thick fog rolling in from the depths of darkness. The complexions of the men in black armor changed slightly, and they vanished from their spot. It was the season when spring turned to summer. Guan sat under a tree, sharing drinks with Xiantiani, exchanging insights on writing. Xiantiani was very fond of the romance of the Three Kingdoms, believing it was not inferior to the journey to the west. Once I thought Investiture of the Gods was the pinnacle, but then you wrote Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. You truly are amazing. Why can't I write books like these? Xiantiani looked at Guan and exclaimed. Shaking his head, Guan said, Your green hero travelogue isn't bad either. Don't write anything else in the future. Just focus on green hero travelogue. If this book grows longer, it will certainly become a classic. Xiantiani felt that writing serious books was rather uninteresting. Over the years, he had written many without much success. Really? But many people are embarrassed to say they like green hero travelogue, you know? Xiantiani asked doubtfully. Do you want to write a book that many people have read but seldom mention, or a book that becomes a masterpiece in the hearts of a few, something they can relish for a lifetime? Asked Guan. Hearing this question, Xiantiani fell into silence. As the two were talking, a loud boom descended from the sky, startling both to look up, and not just them. Others in the valley did the same. They saw a spectacular scene of a meteor shower falling from the sky. Countless meteors with long trails of smoke descended, piercing through the clouds, resembling an apocalypse that made people uneasy from afar. What's that? Guan asked with a frown, thinking to himself that it had finally come. The heavenly demons began their invasion, effortlessly breaking through outer heaven's defenses under the lead of a free immortal. Those meteors concealed many heavenly demons. I'm not sure. I'll check it out. With those words, Xiantiani disappeared from where he stood. Guan stood up and walked toward his loft. An Xian ran all the way to him, anxiously asking, Master, what exactly is that? I'm not sure either, but we're safe inside the Supreme Sect, Guan reassured her. Relieved by his words, an Xian could hear the unspoken message from her master. Those mysterious beings from outer heaven couldn't threaten him. As Guan moved forward, he glanced up and saw that one meteor was heading straight for the Taitsong continent. Shen Xinzi had already gone to meet it, preparing to protect the Taitsong continent. Guan did not intend to take action. After his breakthrough with the invasion of the heavenly demons, perhaps there was some scheme behind it. As long as the continent could withstand this disaster, there was no need for him to intervene. It would be a good opportunity for others to get some practice. In fact, Sword Venerable Fudao had not acted for a long time, and there were daily conflicts of varying sizes within the Supreme Sect, which Guan did not meddle in. This also let the people of the world understand the stance of Sword Venerable Fudao. As long as the core foundation of the Supreme Sect and the safety of the continent were not threatened, Sword Venerable Fudao would not act. After Guan entered his room upstairs, Shen Xinzi had already shattered the meteor, from which a horde of heavenly demons surged out, the strongest reaching the wandering immortal realm. They besieged Shen Xinzi, plunging him into a hard battle. Nine-Finger Divine Lord quickly went to provide support, and cultivators from all over the continent also rushed to the scene. The Taitsong continent was just a microcosm. A grand defensive battle had begun in every part of the world. The great battle outside was even more imposing. Ancient Immortal Emperor of the Immortal Dynasty and the Saint Ancestor of the Holy Court joined forces against the free immortal heavenly demons, deadlocked in combat. Divine thought true immortals showcased their divine skills, and even the 7 beings hidden inside the sun came out to join the battle. Phoenix, True Dragon, Qilin, White Tiger, Shen Turtle, Green Bird Kuan. Their opponents were also colossal creatures, fierce beasts from the silent destruction domain. The scope of the battle quickly expanded. With the great heavenly spirit land at the center, fighting figures filled every direction. The sun and moon Netherworld Emperor stepped out from his house, his gaze calm as he looked up at the sky. At that moment, Long Qing passed right by him, his eyes fixated on the distance, brows tightly furrowed. The sun and moon Netherworld Emperor's gaze fell upon him, and he suddenly furrowed his brow. After the descent of the heavenly demons, Long Qing was overcome with uncontrollable irritation, which was why he kept moving around, trying to dispel the emotions in his heart. Why is the cause and effect on his body changing? Wondered the sun and moon Netherworld Emperor with surprise. And at this time of all times, this child must definitely be related to the heavenly demons. The sun and moon Netherworld Emperor developed an even greater interest in Long Qing, feeling previously that Long Qing had an unusual physique. Before long, a fierce wind blew from afar, a tempest stirred up by the great battle. Guan sat at his desk, holding the green hero travelogue while using his divine thought to observe the entire world. The foundation of the great heavenly spirit land was truly strong. In such a short time, many divine thought true immortals, Tao void mysterious immortals, and divine immortals of wondrous dharma had emerged. From the current perspective, the heavenly demons couldn't shake the great heavenly spirit land. The battle would end following the outcome of the fierce conflict of the free immortals in outer heaven. However, Guan noticed many heavenly demons that descended chose not to fight, but to sneak into the mortal world. Some seized living beings, some disintegrated, merging into the reincarnation rules, and were then sucked into the reincarnation vortex above. Guan suddenly felt that this batch of heavenly demons was not a united front. Those who had not fought were entangled in a multitude of cause and effect with Long Qing, and were very likely here to find him. His divine thought then landed on the Moonfall Divine Lake. Moonfall Divine Lake was also experiencing an attack by the heavenly demons, their situation even more dire because a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm level heavenly demon was lurking around. The reason Guan was paying attention to the Moonfall Divine Lake was mainly because of Zhu Shi with the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body. Under his gaze, Zhu Shi escaped alone from the Moonfall Divine Lake. She stepped on a flying sword, holding a lantern that made her invisible. Only when the crisis on the Taizong continent was resolved by evening did Zhu Shi seek refuge on an island, where she hid in the forest, the lantern still burning. Unbeknownst to her, a heavenly demon was hidden on this very island. Although its cultivation was only at the loose immortal realm, it was far more than she could contend with. Her lantern could not escape the eyes of the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon was closing in on her. Zhu Shi, who was seated in meditation, frowned. Opening her eyes, she looked around, feeling panic. She had a foreboding sense of impending doom and trusted her instincts. That's why she felt so frantic, realizing she was surrounded by danger with no chance to escape. Chapter 370. The Great Emperor of Calamity. Juan World nightfall descended, and the woods fell into complete silence, devoid of any insect song. Zhu Shi stood up, holding a lantern in her left hand and clenching a sword in her right, her gaze nervously sweeping the surroundings. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the wind and instinctively turned her head to look. Then sounds of the wind came from another direction before she could turn again, and soon wind noises erupted from all directions. A gust carrying leaves assaulted her face, causing her eyes to widen in alarm. Far in the Third Medicine Valley, Guan watched this scene unfold without intervening. Zhu Shi was no match for the loose immortal realm, losing consciousness immediately upon the other's attack. The attacker was a female heavenly demon seeking to possess her body, But just as its soul began to infiltrate, the demon sensed a terrifying, devouring force. The heavenly demon instinctively tried to escape, but only part of its soul body flew out. The lower half was sucked in, unable to withdraw. Guan raised an eyebrow as he observed. How much spiritual energy had Zhu Shi consumed? At 23, even with copious quantities of spiritual energy consumed, she shouldn't be able to shake a loose immortal. Could it be she harbored an even greater secret? No matter how the female heavenly demon struggled, she could not break free from the devouring force inside Zhu Shi, and soon she was devoured. Zhu Shi then collapsed to the ground, and the woods returned to tranquility. It wasn't until an ancient hour later that Zhu Shi opened her eyes with a confused gaze. Upon regaining her consciousness, she swiftly scrambled to her feet and warily surveyed her surroundings. Seeing this, Guan withdrew his divine thought. This woman was no simple character. She might become a renowned figure in the future. Guan had no intention of inviting or accepting her as a disciple. Mere curiosity prevailed. In the future, it would be worthwhile to observe Zhu Zai's life trajectory, reminiscent of binge-watching a drama in his previous life. Guan smiled and then turned his attention to reading the Green Hero Travelogue seriously. The moon set and the sun rose. A new day arrived, and the Taitsong continent resumed its regular serenity. As the disciples gathered for morning exercises, they all discussed the distant battle of the previous day, curious about what had happened. When Guan was practicing, he used his divine thought to survey the world. Many regions were still heavily afflicted by heavenly demons, but fortunately, the Holy Court and the Immortal dynasty were quicker to act, constantly exorcising demons and providing rescue. In this calamity afflicting all beings, the Immortal dynasty showed formidable prowess, quickly catching up to the Holy Court. As they saved more and more lives, Guan distinctly felt the chief fortune of the Immortal dynasty growing. This catastrophe actually presented an opportunity for the Immortal dynasty. Guan spotted an Hao's figure. He was observing the battle, for the weakest of the heavenly demons also had a mortal path cultivation, far beyond his current capability. While observing the world, Shun Xinzi returned. Many disciples looked towards him, feeling that he must know what happened the previous day. Not until the morning exercises concluded did Long Qing eagerly rush to Shun Xinzi, asking why he had left. Yesterday, heavenly demons descended. Fortunately, the crisis on this continent has been resolved, Shun Xinzi replied, though his complexion appeared unnatural. The battle from a day before triggered some foreign memories, leading him to suspect they were from his past life. He had long been aware of his identity as a reincarnated heavenly demon, but through the years, he had resolved to embrace this fact. He believed that with a determined will, he would not become a demon. He even entertained the delusion of using his identity to convert heavenly demons. Heavenly demon. Long Qing's eyes widened. Shun Xinzi began to describe the terror of the heavenly demons, leaving Long Qing trembling with fear. From afar, Guan watched the scene with amusement. Two reincarnated heavenly demons discussing the threats of their kin, neither aware of the other's true identity. He gestured to the blood prison great saint, and then walked toward the outer gate city. Although the battle in outer heaven hadn't ended, he had lost interest in it for the time being, as it seemed inevitable that the heavenly demons would be repelled. He decided to visit the outer gate city for a change of scenery. Elsewhere, Three Pure Ones Mountain. Leah sat meditating at the edge of a cliff, gazing up at the sky, seemingly lost in thought. A soul approached, the ancestor of Li family who had once been hidden within Li Ya's body. "What are you thinking about?" The ancestor of Li family asked as he came beside Li Ya. "Ancestor, what is like beyond the heavens? And how many levels are there in the immortal path?" Li Ya asked softly. The ancestor of Li family replied, somewhat annoyed, "How would I know? You have already surpassed me in your lifetime. I am waiting for you to show me a broader world." Upon hearing this, Leah cracked a smile and then stood up, stretching languidly. "Well, get ready, as I will soon leave the mountain to seek fortune. I've realized that traveling is necessary. Secluded cultivation alone makes for slow progress in raising cultivation level. At this rate, I'm afraid it'll fall further behind in how. Hearing Li Yas' words, the ancestor of Li family showed a smile, saying, I am indeed curious to see how formidable the divine exotic city is. The corners of Li Yas' mouth lifted, his eyes filled with spirit. Zhen Xin had the makings of a storyteller, with a tone that could emotionally engage listeners. Guan was quite cooperative, showing a nervous expression at critical moments of the tale. Yilan, on the other hand, watched Guan and was occasionally amused by his expressions. Suddenly, Zhen Xin stood up, drew her sword, and pointed it to one side, her eyes wide as she said, That's exactly what I did, holding my sword to that man's neck, questioning him why he would harm his own master. Despite the evidence in front of him, he was still defiant, refusing to admit anything. Guan was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something, his eyes subtly shifting. Zhen Xin was about to continue her story when her expression changed abruptly. Not only her, but Yilan's expression also changed dramatically. What's going on? Why do I feel like something is grabbing me? Exclaimed Zhen Xin in horror, instinctively looking at Yilan. Yilan's body trembled as she spoke through gritted teeth. Me too. I can't break free. In Gu An's eyes, a mysterious causality force intertwined around Yilan and Zhen Xin. It wasn't just the two of them. Within the subsect, many others were entangled by this force of causality. He looked up to see the sky, which appeared a magnificent blue, but through his eyes there appeared an intricate black net across the sky, beyond the reach of mortal beings. This black net seemed to connect with countless souls in the world. Gu An's divine thought followed the black net and saw the enormous black sphere in the universe. In that instant, he understood the calamitous great emperor's divine skill. No wonder there were so many heavenly demons reincarnating and seizing bodies. It was to merge into the rules of heaven and earth within the great heavenly spirit land. Watching the trend of causality force exerted by the calamitous great emperor, it seemed he intended to pull many beings of the great heavenly spirit land into that black sphere. Guan saw that Long Qing was also entwined by this force of causality. He immediately stood up and, feigning panic, grabbed Yilan's shoulder to ask her what was wrong. Elder brother, get away quickly, Yilan said through clenched teeth, unable to shake his grip nor stand up. What's happening? How could I possibly abandon you? Guan exclaimed anxiously. Yilan was about to reply, when suddenly the world spun around them. The same sensation hit Zhen Xin. Then, Guan and the two women vanished into thin air. At this moment, countless beings disappeared without a trace, causing an earth-shattering uproar within the Supreme Sect's subsect. Yilan clenched her eyes shut, feeling as if she was falling, a sensation even she, in the divinity transformation realm, found extremely unbearable. As she continued to fall, she gradually regained control of her body. Soon, she felt her feet touch the ground. A hand grasped her right hand, immediately calming her heart. This was her elder brother's hand. She knew every line on his palms. There could be no mistake. She then felt her eyes could open and immediately did so. What appeared before her was a sky shrouded in crimson, with countless figures descending from above like a torrential downpour. Guan and Zhen Xin stood beside her, atop a mountain peak, all looking at the sky in shock. Where is this place? Zhen Xin asked with trembling voice, her beautiful eyes wide. She followed the direction the figures were falling and saw a series of peaks stretching endlessly into the gloom. Once all the figures landed, the crimson sky revealed a pair of immense eyes, those of the calamitous great emperor, looking down upon all beings within the world as if searching for something. Mortal spirits of great heavenly spirit land. This realm, created by this emperor, is Jiyuan world. No one can save you here. However, this emperor is merciful and will offer you a sliver of hope. The voice of the calamitous great emperor resonated, like a dull thunder, echoing through the heavens and earth. Chapter 371. Heavenly Tao and Heavenly Demon Long Qing stood on the hillside, gazing up at the huge eye in the sky, his face full of fear. Other people were also on the hillside. All of them were disciples of the Supreme Sect, and an Xian was among them. Every person listening to the words of the great Demon Emperor felt a chill down their spine, their hearts filled with fear. They had never heard of the Jiyuan world, and it was even the first time they had heard the name of the Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Within the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, there are many heavenly demons reincarnated. They may be your kin or your dear friends. If you want to survive, then kill all the reincarnated heavenly demons. The heavenly demons must do the same. Kill off all the creatures of the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, and you will regain your freedom, said the Great Demon Emperor, his voice ringing out, tone frosty, filled with a murderous intent. Yilan and Zhenqin frowned upon hearing this, and they instinctively looked around, fearing an attack by a heavenly demon. Guan speculated that the Great Demon Emperor was looking for Long Qing. But why didn't he directly wipe out all the beings that fell into the Jiyuan world? Soon, Guan understood. It was the protection of the heavenly Tao. As the voice of the Great Demon Emperor ceased, Guan felt the presence of many heavenly demons. Those reincarnated began to awaken their heavenly demon origin. As the demonic qi grew, the aura of the heavenly Tao began to emerge from the bodies of the Great Heavenly Spirit Land creatures. This so-called heavenly Tao aura was the same as the aura of the layer of light outside the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, which prevented beings below heaven and earth flying immortal from flying to outer heaven. In fact, everything in the Great Heavenly Spirit Land was infused with heavenly Tao aura, including the other great heaven and earth realms that Guan glimpsed during his breakthrough. The heavenly Tao is omnipresent. This is a force distinct from the Tao, and within it implicitly lies the will of heaven, referring to the heavenly Tao rules. The creatures from the silent destruction domain are easily distinguishable because they don't have the aura of the heavenly Tao. Their presence is discomforting to beings born under the heavenly Tao, and thus the two factions have been incompatible since ancient times. The Great Demon Emperor was obviously studying the way of cause and effect, fearful of slaughtering too many creatures of the heavenly Tao and suffering a karma rebound. Killing a few creatures of the heavenly Tao, however, was no issue. In the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, they had heard mentions of the heavenly Tao, which for cultivators was a vague and elusive legend. Of course, if pushed to the brink, the Great Demon Emperor wouldn't care so much. After all, he came from the silent destruction domain and couldn't possibly suffer a karma rebound so severe that his body and Tao perished. If the heavenly Tao were so powerful, there wouldn't be the existence of the silent destruction domain. The Great Demon Emperor stopped speaking, and the pair of eyes also vanished, plunging the entire world into silence. Guan noticed that Ji Xiaoyu and Hao, Lia, Wu Zhu, Xian Tianyi, Jiang Qiong, Long Qing, and Xian, and other people had also been pulled into the Jiyuan world. It seemed that the beings dragged into the Jiyuan world, apart from the reincarnated heavenly demons, were almost all but ordinary. At least their fates were extraordinary. He suddenly thought of a question. Could the Great Demon Emperor's action be related to the commotion of his breakthrough? Very likely. On reflection, if it were not for him, Long Qing would not have been born early. According to the man in black on Qingtian Peak, Long Qing needed to be nurtured for at least a few thousand years. Gu An's actions advanced many things by thousands of years. What should we do? Zhenqin looked at Yilan and asked, accustomed to Yilan taking the lead. Yilan took a deep breath and said, "We'll have to play it by ear." According to his words, we can unite with many people. This is not a matter of individual survival, but a competition between two camps. Over the past few months, news about the heavenly demons had already spread within the Supreme Sect, and many legends of heavenly demons circulated. They knew that the heavenly demons came from beyond the heavens, and because of this, they were very wary of them, not overly confident. Yilan continued, I sense the presence of some of our fellow sect members. Let's meet up with the people of the Supreme Sect first. Zhenqi nodded, and Guven had no objection. He wanted to see how Yilan and the others would perform in the face of such a catastrophe. The three of them began to descend the hill. Guan's divine thought swept the area. There were quite a few heavenly demons, numbering over 1 million. Although they were not as numerous as the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land, the heavenly demons' cultivation levels were higher. A fierce battle would follow soon. Guan would make his move when the great heavenly spirit landside was on the brink of collapse. To him, the great emperor of calamity wasn't that strong. Both well-studied in the way of cause and effect, Guan's causal power was a step ahead of the great emperor of calamity. The Jiyuan world was formed by the forces of causality, and for Guan to break, it was hardly a difficult task. Master, who would have thought that the three of us would have the chance to adventure together? Zhenqi suddenly turned her head to look at Guan, saying with a grin, no longer as tense as before. Yilan couldn't help but look towards Guan as well, though her eyes held more worry. In her mind, Guan was protected by Sword Venerable Fu Dao, but whether Sword Venerable Fu Dao could find the Jiyuan world was not certain. Hence, she worried that she wouldn't be able to protect Guan. She would rather die alone than let Guan die before her. Intuition told her that the heavenly demon was absolutely terrifying. She had to go into battle prepared to die, without a trace of carelessness. Rest assured, I am very strong. I won't hold you back, Guan said seriously, taking out the fate-determining pen. Zhenqi couldn't help but tease. Being in the nascent soul realm is indeed impressive. Got wings, and now looking down on your master's cultivation level. Dare not, dare not. The master and disciple began to banter. Guan's divine thought had already spread out, watching over Ji Xiaoyu and Hao and others to prevent them from encountering an unbeatable foe. 30 minutes later, Guan and the others from the Supreme Sect gathered, deciding to look for disciples from their own sect. The Jiyuan world was large, but not as incomparably vast as the great heavenly spirit land, so an Xian and the others were not far from them. The disciples of the Supreme Sect pulled into the Jiyuan world numbered only a few dozen, either with extraordinary fates or geniuses. Longqing's body contained the path of returning primordial spirit strengthened by Guan, and thus he did not awaken to become a heavenly demon. Facing the imminent battle with the heavenly demon, Longqing was excited. He had long wanted to take on the world, but his master had not allowed it. During flight, a thunderous roar came from afar, startling the disciples of the Supreme Sect into immediately accelerating away from the battle. Guan stood behind Yilan, sharing a sword with her, when he spotted a familiar face engaged in the distant battle. Leah. The kid was directly using the power of Divine Exotic City to suppress the heavenly demon, drawing in more of them for a siege. Guan began to watch the battle, wanting to see how much Leah had improved. Time rushed by quickly. An hour later, the Supreme Sect side finally met up. The forces of causality hadn't scattered their position. Master, an Xian, seeing Guan, immediately showed a joyously surprised expression. She swiftly flew by Guan's side. Her anxious look swept away, replaced with excitement. Longqing too flew over, chattering non-stop in excitement. He couldn't wait to fight the heavenly demon. Yilan started negotiating with other disciples of the Supreme Sect. Zhenqi looked at an Xian and Longqing, her expression odd. Why weren't these two scared at all? It was one thing for Longqing to be fearless, the young and rash type, but why was an Xian, that girl, getting all excited too? Chapter 372. Who are you exactly? Supreme Sect disciples discussed for quite some time and ultimately decided to join the battle. In their view, hiding and waiting for others to fight, hoping for a slim chance of survival, was very foolish. Guan much appreciated the courage and insight of the Supreme Sect disciples. In such a situation, Choosing to lay low could indeed result in a complete loss. Unity was surely the best approach. Dozens of people banded together and flew towards the nearest battlefield. Leah had already finished his battle. Relying on the powerful force of divine exotic city, his victory came easily. He didn't even have to lift a finger. It was entirely the divine exotic immortal spirit fighting on his behalf. 30 minutes later, Gu In and the others joined the encirclement against the heavenly demon. Under Yilan's arrangement, Guin was positioned on the outermost layer, responsible for casting long-range spells. With the fate-determining pen in hand, Guin pretended to exert himself earnestly. His divine thought also looked towards the distance, enveloping the entire Jiyuan world, spying on the battlefield from a macro perspective. More and more beings began to engage in battle with the heavenly demon, all becoming embroiled in fierce combat. Guin started to snatch kills. When the heavenly demon was on the verge of death, his divine thought would strike at the heavenly demon. A series of prompts popped up before his eyes, bringing him increasing pleasure. Suddenly, he captured a whiff of the presence of a free immortal. The other party was well hidden, but could not escape his divine thought. It must be the creator of the Jiyuan world. This person was masquerading as part of the great heavenly spirit landside and was still opposing the heavenly demon. What did this mean? Guin couldn't figure it out, so he couldn't be bothered to think about it. He continued to balance the battlefield. If the heavenly demons had an overwhelming advantage over the beings, he would help suppress them, giving those of the great heavenly spirit land a chance to train. The beings who were drawn into the Jiyuan world were not mediocre. One day, they would become the backbone of the great heavenly spirit land. What Guin needed to do was ensure not too many talents from the great heavenly spirit land perished, while allowing this experience to provide them with opportunities for transformation. In the cosmos, more and more cultivators flew to the vicinity of the Black Sphere, looking nervously at the Black Sphere created by the demon Great Emperor. Damn it! Are we just going to watch this happen? My sect has hundreds of disciples caught up in this. They are all the future of my sect. Isn't our sect the same? What exactly is this method? Move aside. I refuse to believe it. Is the Holy Court truly helpless? Great cultivators of various factions discussed among themselves. Some even attacked the giant Black Sphere, trying to shatter it, but no spells or divine skills that struck the Black Sphere could move it. The ancient Immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor stood on high ground, frowning at this scene. A figure appeared behind them, a middle-aged man dressed in golden garments, holding a jade ruler with a dignified face. Holy Minister, is there truly no way to resolve this? The man in golden garments asked. He was indeed the Holy Minister of the Holy Court. At this moment, his brow was furrowed, and his eyes were full of worry. The Saint Ancestor, with his back to him, answered, I can sense that the chief fortune of the Holy Court has not weakened, which means that those juniors involved have not suffered significant casualties. Let's seal off this space first. The Holy Minister hesitated for a moment, then turned to give the order. The ancient Immortal Emperor took a deep breath and said, I feel that his purpose is not the slaughter of the young generation of the great heavenly spirit land. It seems he is searching for something. The Saint Ancestor replied, I think so as well, but throughout history, there have been too many beings from outer heaven that have infiltrated the great heavenly spirit land. It is temporarily impossible for me to deduce what the demon Great Emperor is searching for. The two free immortals fell into confusion, their gaze never leaving the Black Sphere. Time moved quickly. Half a day after entering the Jiyuan world, all the beings within began to fight, with the sounds of battle everywhere. With Gu An's hidden help, the morale of those from the great heavenly spirit land continued to rise. The more the heavenly demons perished, the greater the advantage for the great heavenly spirit land side. In just half a day, Gun had already reaped more than 30 million years of lifespan, successfully surpassing 100 million in total. Not a single supreme sect disciple had died. Everyone's confidence was growing, and even Yilan no longer constrained Gun as before, also looking for opportunities for Gu and to gain experience. The Jiyuan world seemed to have no day or night. The blood-colored sky only showed shifting clouds. Guin, holding the fate-determining pen and standing on the heavenly resident's sword, followed the steps of the main force. An Xin was beside him, discussing the previous battle with Long Qing. Guan's eyes looked towards the front lines at Wu Ju. As the mainstay of the Supreme Sect disciples, Wu Ju was capable of standing on his own. Seeing his independence, Guin couldn't help but think of his own timid demeanor in the past, filled with emotion. If possible, Guin would rather the ordeal last a few more days, but the heavenly demon-free Immortal was becoming harder to restrain. It had only been half a day, and a third of the heavenly demons had died, tens of thousands of miles away. On a mountain cliff stood a man in black, furrowing his brow. He was the incarnation of the demon Great Emperor. What's going on? The beings of the great heavenly spirit land can't possibly be this formidable. The demon Great Emperor was filled with confusion. In his view, although the great heavenly spirit land side had numerical advantage, it should not be showing its current strength since the heavenly demon side was clearly stronger. The more the demon Great Emperor thought about it, the more panicked he became. He felt that an unknown entity might have infiltrated the Jiyuan world. Even he, a free immortal, couldn't see through it. The first he thought of was Shang Tian of the Holy Court. He had previously obtained the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Perhaps Shang Tian had also been pulled in and was secretly making a move? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. He immediately disappeared from the spot. Wu Ju flew to Guin's side and said, "According to the intelligence we've gathered, the other battlefields are also gaining an advantage, so you don't need to worry too much." Guin replied reluctantly, "What do I have to worry about? It's you guys who are charging into battle. I'm in no danger at all." Wu Ju laughed and said, "This is still your first time leaving the Supreme Sect for an adventure. I'm just afraid you might be anxious." An Xin covered her mouth and snickered nearby. Wu Ju thought she was laughing at Guin, so he didn't think much of it. Standing behind Guin, Long Qing leaned forward and excitedly asked, "Elder Wu, when will the next battle begin?" During the previous fight, he had also participated, and his formidable physique surprised many disciples of the Supreme Sect. It was truly inconceivable that this lad had not an ounce of spiritual power, but could still display such domineering performance. Wu Ju looked at him and smiled. It should be soon. Having successively slain heavenly demons, Wu Ju began to underestimate them, feeling that they were not as terrifying as he had imagined. Just as Wu Ju was about to speak further, he saw Long Qing's eyes widen in nervous anticipation, looking towards the sky. Instinctively, he turned his head and saw a pair of gigantic eyes appear in the blood-colored sky, eyes that belonged to the Great Emperor of Disaster. The Great Emperor of Disaster seemed to be searching for something. His gaze moved rapidly, and, except for Guin, whose heart would flutter at the sight of it, anyone else who locked gazes with the Great Emperor felt their hearts race. In the presence of these eyes, any creature, no matter how talented, would feel an instinctual terror. The entire Jin world fell into silence, all life forms gazing up at the eyes of the Great Emperor of Disaster. On the edge of a forest, Zhu Shi looked up at the Great Emperor, her eyes filled with worry, while the cultivators and demons above the forest were just as tense. "Dear heavens, please let me survive this calamity," Zhu Shi prayed silently in her heart. In the earlier part of the day, although she had been part of the battle, she never approached the heavenly demons closely and only played a supporting role. As the eyes of the Great Emperor of Disaster appeared, people's excitement was extinguished. What did it matter if they could defeat the heavenly demons? To leave alive, the demonic eyes in the heavens were an unavoidable presence. Suddenly, the Great Emperor of Disaster's eyes burst open, his pupilless gaze emitting a strange red light, and all creatures changed in expression, falling into a stupefied state. Those creatures in the air began to descend, landing on the mountains and lands below, while the heavenly demons retreated, seemingly under orders not to strike when the enemy was vulnerable. Guin felt the consciousness of those around him fall into some kind of illusion. Everyone was confronting the deepest fears in their hearts. Guin pretended to go along, enduring the spread of the illusion realm. He led Long Qing down onto a hillside. The gaze of the great Emperor of Disaster landed on Ji Xiaoyu, with a strange look in his eyes, but then he moved it away and fell upon Long Qing. All creatures were in pain, yet Long Qing remained calm. The giant eyes in the sky then disappeared. The great Emperor of Disaster appeared out of nowhere beside Long Qing, looking him over. Surprisingly, Long Qing felt no fear at all, and his illusion was of a bright, great heaven and earth where he was running around, calling out for Guin and an Exian. Could he be the reincarnation of Long Qing? He wondered. The gaze of the great Emperor of Disaster flickered. Then, raising a hand, he attempted to touch Long Qing's forehead. Snap! Suddenly, a hand grabbed the wrist of the great Emperor's right hand, causing an unexpected change of expression on his face as he looked in astonishment at Gu and standing beside Long Qing. Saint Heaven! The great Emperor of Disaster frowned and said, "You should be able to tell that I don't intend to exterminate everyone. I'm just looking for Long Qing. Don't you bear a grudge against the Long family of the Battle Court?" It turns out that what the great Emperor of Disaster feared was not just the heavenly doubt destiny, but Saint Heaven as well. The great Emperor of Disaster, level 5 free immortal realm 37,902,765/100 million. What a long lifespan. It would be a pity not to slay. Guin asked, "How can you be sure that I am Saint Heaven?" As soon as these words came out, the complexion of the great Emperor of Disaster changed drastically, and he instinctively tried to teleport away, only to discover to his horror that he could not move at all. How was this possible? The great Emperor of Disaster tried to use the power of cause and effect, but he couldn't shake Guin, which terrified him even more. Who are you really? The great Emperor of Disaster stared at Guin, asking with a trembling voice that could not hide his fear. Guin asked, "Why are you looking for Long Qing?" Upon hearing this, the face of the great Emperor of Disaster filled with a look of despair as he murmured to himself, "The Long family still has a great power hidden away." Seeing that he was unwilling to answer, Guin lost his patience and directly assailed the soul of the great Emperor of Disaster with divine thought. Great imprisoned soul immortal technique. Search memories. After a dozen or so breaths, Guin withdrew his divine thought, and with a squeeze of his right hand, the great Emperor of Disaster instantly disintegrated into ash. A blood-red Tao seed hovered in front of him. Guin's gaze sharpened as the terrifying force of causality immediately ground the Tao seed into dust, vanishing in a flash. You have successfully seized 6,230,567 years of lifespan from the great Emperor of Disaster, level 5 free immortal realm. Over 620,000 years of lifespan. A look of pleasure crossed Guin's face. Truly worthy of a free immortal. Chapter 373. Reincarnation tribulation. After slaying the evil emperor, the Jiyuan world did not dissipate and maintained its heaven and earth form. The beings trapped in the illusion realm awakened one after another. Yilan, upon waking, instinctively turned around, and when she saw Guin was unharmed, she immediately sighed in relief. An Exian opened her eyes, spotted Guin's figure, and drew closer to him, while patting her chest with a frightened expression on her face. When all the disciples of the Supreme Sect had woken up, everyone gathered to discuss the recent events, all with tensed minds, guarding against the evil emperor striking again. Little did they know, the master of the Jiyuan world had already turned to ashes and smoke. Guin, having searched through the evil emperor's soul, had a subtle look in his eyes as he glanced at Long Qing and heaved a slight sigh in his heart. Long Qing turned out to be the sole survivor of the dragon lineage, and the evil emperor had been sent to eradicate the dragon family bloodline completely. The man in black at Qingtian Peak was Long Qing's subordinate. Long Qing's reincarnation was to avoid the pursuit of the forces behind the evil emperor. Battle Court. The Battle Court of today was no longer a force led by descendants of the dragon family. It was exactly for this reason that the master of the Battle Court had wanted to eradicate Long Qing, fearing that a powerful member of the dragon family could be resurrected through their bloodline. Years ago, the reincarnated Long Qing hid very well. To avoid the pursuit of the Battle Court, Long Qing's subordinates sneaked into Qingtian Peak, unnoticed by gods or ghosts, and came to the great heavenly spirit land. But the turmoil in the silent destruction domain years ago had caught the attention of the evil emperor. The Dark War Emperor was sent by the evil emperor. To be precise, the Dark War Emperor was cultivated by the evil emperor, and the inheritance of the Dark War Emperor's battle court originated from the evil emperor. It was through the Dark War Emperor's reckless actions that the evil emperor speculated that Shang Tian had reincarnated. To ascend beyond the nine-layered realm of the free immortal, one must undergo reincarnation tribulations. Only after 100 lifetimes is there a chance to strike at the Tao fruit realm. This is the reincarnation tribulation. In the memory of the evil emperor, he had been defeated by Shang Tian and nearly perished. This was also why the evil emperor had previously dared not personally come to the great heavenly spirit land. The Dark War Emperor was merely one of his pawns, and not even the Holy Court's holy ministers knew there was someone behind the Dark War Emperor. Just the thought that Long Zhan's descendants were reduced only to Long Qing made Guan feel a tinge of melancholy. Guan, however, was not afraid of an attack from the battle court, for from the evil emperor's memories, it was clear that stronger existences from the battle court could not reach this universe, and only the free immortal could. Therefore, the battle court had dispatched the evil emperor, but the specific reasons for that were unclear even to the evil emperor himself. The evil emperor had been in this universe for countless years. At that time, Long Qing's parents were still alive, and they had perished at his hands. After countless years, the bloodline of the dragon family in various universes had been exterminated, leaving only Long Qing. While the disciples were discussing the schemes of the evil emperor, Guan was silent. With a thought, the blood-red sky began to collapse silently. "Look at the sky quickly," someone exclaimed, causing others to look up. Seeing the sky twist, everyone panicked, not having time to think further, as the dizziness they felt before entering the Jiyuan world re-emerged, causing them to promptly close their eyes. Unable to move or peek at their surroundings, this feeling made everyone's heart race. Only Guan kept his eyes open. Under his divine thought's impact, the Jiyuan world began to collapse, and he divided its karmic forces into the power of rules, distributing it to everyone, bestowing them a fortune. Utilizing karmic causation, Guan sent everyone back to their respective places in the great heavenly spirit land. Meanwhile, the great cultivators in the universe saw a giant black orb begin to tremble and dissolve in a black mist, making them even more nervous, fearing that something might have happened to their juniors inside. As the black mist dispersed, they sensed something and turned their heads, their faces revealing joy. They felt the presence of their juniors. No matter what the evil emperor had planned, at least their juniors were alive. The ancient immortal emperor and the saint ancestors furrowed their brows, exchanging glances, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. What's happening? On the other side, Taitsong continent, supreme sex subsect. Yilan abruptly opened her eyes, saw Guan sitting across from her with eyes still firmly closed, breathed a sigh of relief, then looked around with a look of surprise on her face. Zhen Qin then awoke, followed by Guan. "Are we back? Could it be that all the heavenly demons have been wiped out?" Zhen Qin asked cautiously. Guan took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure. Did you feel anything extra in your minds?" He had used the karmic power of the evil emperor to enhance the being's insight into the way of cause and effect, which had nothing to do with him. So he wasn't concerned that someone could infer anything about himself through this. Besides, his own method of divine thought naturally shielded him from karmic deductions. Yilan and Zhen Qin nodded, then began to share their insights. It wasn't just them. All the beings who had returned from the Jiuan world were curious about the karma Tao they found in their minds. After a long discussion, Guan stood up and said, "I've been delayed long enough. I must go back." Yilan wanted to say something, but Guan turned and walked away, deeply concealing his abilities and his renown. "It's fine. We're back now. Listen to the noises outside." Zhen Qin comforted her, saying that with their level of cultivation, they could hear the sounds outside the estate, confirming that they were indeed back. Yilan frowned, worrying about being pulled into the Jiyuan world again. Yet upon second thought, if that mysterious existence wanted to do so, what would be the point in releasing them? Having just returned to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan was stopped by an Xian and Long Qing, who excitedly spoke of their newfound enlightenments, drawing more and more people to gather around. Hearing about their half-day ordeal, the disciples were astonished. Long Qing looked toward Shen Xinzi, who was approaching, and asked, "Master, what exactly is the Jiyuan world?" Shen Xinzi furrowed his brows. He was not chosen, and he replied, "I do not know either. Tell me in detail about your experiences." Long Qing nodded and then began to recount to Shen Xinzi about their journey to the Jiyuan world. When he reached the part about battling the heavenly demons, he became visibly excited. While Long Qing captured everyone's attention, Guan slipped back into the house. With the fall of the great emperor of evil, this disaster brought by the heavenly demons seemed to be drawing to a close. There should be peace for a while, as long as the Immortal dynasty and the Holy Court do not fight among themselves. Guan saw a large number of great cultivators returning to the outer heaven, and all the sects were inquiring about their disciples' experiences. It was unknown what changes this cycle of karma and fortune would bring to the great heavenly spirit land. The beings chosen for the Jiyuan world were all geniuses, those with extraordinary chi fortune. In tens of thousands of years, they would be the ones dictating the fate of the great heavenly spirit land. Tens of thousands of years, it still seemed so distant. Guan, now 425 years old, felt such sentiments in his heart. Above the sea of clouds, a woman in yellow robes flew along. It was Zhu Shi with the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body. She gazed at the majestic mountains towering into the clouds in the distance, a look of anticipation in her eyes. "Mortal world peak, I have finally arrived." Zhu, she murmured to herself. 50 years had passed since their journey to the Jiyuan world. In those 50 years, she traveled the world. Some years ago, when she heard that Mortal World Peak was recruiting mortal spirits, she decided to try her luck. Mortal World Peak was one of the top immortal sects in the world. If she could take root here, she would not need to wander anymore. At the same time, atop Dingtian Peak, Guan, who was reading in the mountaintop courtyard, sensed Zhu Zai's presence and felt a touch of surprise. Was this a coincidence? He had no intention of looking after Zhu Shi. He wanted to see how she would fare after joining Mortal World Peak. Beside him, an Xian who was practicing Taoist Gang primal energy turned her head to Guan and said, "Master, the Gang Qi inside my body is going haywire. I can't control it." Her tone was anxious, clearly in panic. Guan, lying in his chair, did not get up but just lifted his left hand and flicked his index finger toward her. A jet of strength energy shot out, entered in Zin's body, and instantly calmed the rampaging Gang Qi, restoring its normal flow. An Xian breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Guan with admiration, she asked, "Master, how are you so powerful? When will I be able to cultivate to your level?" "Cultivate for 100 million years," Guan replied offhandedly, flipping the page with his left hand. 100 million years? How long is that? Who can live that long? An Xian complained, feeling like her master was teasing her. Guan ignored her and continued reading. This book was not the Green Hero Travelogue, but a rare book he found at Mortal World Peak, which recounted an extraordinary tale from Mortal World Peak, a story of a disciple who fell in love with a female demon. This book was a banned one, quite hard to come by. Based on Gu An's experience, The writing in this book was not as delicate as that by Xian Tianyi, but it had its charms in the bizarre. The demoness reincarnated several times to find the protagonist, which was quite touching. As dusk approached, Guan finally got up, stretched, and then left with an exile. After returning to the Supreme Sect, the pair landed in a grove and made their way toward Mystic Valley. An Exian was talking animatedly about her cultivation progress for the day, very lively. Guan was not bothered by her enthusiasm and listened attentively, offering occasional guidance. Arriving at Mystic Valley, Guan spotted a familiar face. Jiang Qiong. Jiang Qiong was standing in front of a garden railing, admiring the flowers in full bloom. Guan asked an Exian to head back to the Third Medicine Valley on her own, and he approached Jiang Qiong. Looking at Jiang Qiong's back skeptically, an Exian didn't stop but headed towards the transmission array platform. "How long have you been here?" Gu An's voice reached Jiang Qiong's ears. Without turning around, she focused on a flower and responded, "About 2 ancient hours, I'd say." Only when Guan came to her side did she turn to face him and size him up. "So many years have passed. How come you're still at the nascent soul realm? When I was in the Jiun world, I felt your presence. You must have gained some opportunities," Jiang Qiong asked with a frown. Chapter 374, the Book of the Reincarnation Path. Emperor. Upon hearing Jiang Qiong's words, Guan frowned and then sighed. "How can I persuade you? It's true that Su Han was indeed forced to death by the ghost mother of ephemera. That year, when Su Han was pursued and had no choice but to follow the ghost mother of ephemera, she taught him the defying fate divine skill. Before his death, he transferred his cultivation level to Zhenqin, helping Zhenqin to be reborn. After so many years, Zhenqin always remembered the hatred in her heart. Guan had long severed the master-disciple relationship with Su Han and had even saved him, owing Su Han nothing, so he did not plan to take revenge for Su Han. Moreover, the ghost mother of ephemera had already pledged allegiance to him. If not for his arrangement, how could the ghost mother of ephemera have helped Jiang Qiong establish the Juhua sect? Guan would not help Zhenqin kill the ghost mother of ephemera, but would ensure her survival. Perhaps it was unfair to the ghost mother of ephemera, but there was no helping it. In Gu An's heart, Zhenqin was definitely more important than the ghost mother of ephemera. Out of his first batch of Medicine Valley disciples, only Zhenqin was still alive, and since she was very filial to him, how could he not favor her? Jiang Qiong frowned and said, "The ghost mother of ephemera is now the deputy sect master of the Juhua sect. It's impossible for me to confront her. There's no need. Everyone has their own grudges. Your protection of Zhenqin's life is enough. Thank you." Guan spoke earnestly and then raised his hand to salute Jiang Qiong. Jiang Qiong snorted and said, "What thanks? Your business is my business. I quite like that girl Zhenqin too. Once I'm strong enough, it'll help her slaughter the ghost mother of ephemera." Guan was taken aback and asked, "Do you have a grudge against her?" "No grudge, but if I had to choose between you and her, I would definitely choose you. However, these are all things for later. Once I have the ability," Jiang Qiong shook her head. Afterwards, she talked about the insights she gained in the Jiyuan world. Since her journey in the Jiyuan world, she had many revelations during her cultivation, particularly about divination. She could now peer into the cause and effect of mortals to deduce their fate. She was curious if Guan had gained anything. Guan replied that he had, but his fortunes were not as great as hers, which left her slightly disappointed. After night had fallen, Jiang Qiong took Gu into the 8 Sina Caves. "Why insist on going to the 8 Sina Caves? Just stay at my Third Medicine Valley. Now that you're a giant of the righteous path, having formed an alliance with Supreme Sect, they won't stop you from entering Supreme Sect." Walking through the forest, Guan couldn't help asking. Jiang Qiong, holding his right wrist, didn't look back and said, "The 8 Sina Caves are our home." "What home? You want to live in a coffin?" Hearing Gu An's words, Jiang Qiong couldn't help but turn around and glare at him. In the end, Guan couldn't resist Jiang Qiong and was pulled into the 8 Scenic Caves with her. It wasn't until noon the next day that Guan finally returned to the third Medicine Valley. As he arrived at his own loft, Ji Xiaoyu stepped out of the door. 40 years ago, Ji Xiaoyu had returned. Her understanding of the way of cause and effect far surpassed that of an Exine, Long Qing, Yi Lan, and others. Guan could feel the force of cause and effect growing stronger within her. "Who did you fool around with last night?" Ji Xiaoyu stared at Guan, asking with a somewhat cold voice. Guan looked at her and replied, "With an old friend. When I knew her, you weren't even born yet. If not for her guidance, where would I be today?" His words were no joke. Jiang Qiong had taught him so much. Among them, the Demon Shadow Divine Skill was the most important. Under Gu Ans enhancement, this skill could now isolate cause and effect. Reaching the Immortal Path realm, many would start to delve into divination techniques, and to rise to the carefree primordial immortal realm was to study the way of cause and effect. Without Jiang Qiong's Demon Shadow Divine Skill, perhaps Gu Ans' true cultivation level would have been discovered long ago. Hearing his words, Ji Xiaoyu's expression softened, and she was about to continue speaking but was preempted by him. "Focus on your immortal cultivation, and don't bother with the affairs of mortal romance." Having said that, Guan quickly ascended the stairs. Ji Xiaoyu watched him go up, her eyebrows tightly furrowed. As Guan entered the room, ready to close the door, Ji Xiaoyu appeared out of nowhere, pressing her hand against the door. "What are you doing?" Guan frowned at Ji Xiaoyu, a look of fear on his face. Ji Xiaoyu stepped forward expressionlessly, startling him into stepping back. Bang! After Ji Xiaoyu entered the room, the door closed heavily behind her. Guan kept retreating until he reached the table, looking at Ji Xiaoyu's expressionless face with trepidation. What did this woman want to do? Was she going to hit him, or was she trying to learn from Jiang Qiong? Just thinking about last night's chaos gave Guan a headache. Sigh, why were so many women interested in him? Even if he refused, it wouldn't work. Ji Xiaoyu walked up to him and said, "Over these years, I've been delving into the way of cause and effect and have discovered that your disciple Long Qing has extraordinary karma. Where exactly did you find him? Do you know his true identity?" Hearing this, Guan asked in astonishment, "Extraordinary karma? What do you mean? What's wrong with him? Could he be the reincarnation of a heavenly demon?" Ji Xiaoyu scrutinized Gu Ans' expression, feeling that he did not seem to be lying. Her expression softened as she said, "Whether he is a heavenly demon or not is yet to be determined. You keeping him by your side is sure to bring you disaster. Otherwise, hand him over to me, or let Shun Xinzi take him to the Bittersea Buddhist sect." That doesn't seem right. He's grown up in the Third Medicine Valley since he was a child. How could I possibly drive him away? Guan frowned. Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath and said, "His lineage is not simple. I can feel that my primordial Taoist talisman is very wary of his karma and unwilling to intervene. I'm not joking. Don't you want to live in peace forever?" Guan thought to himself, "Of course his lineage isn't simple. He's my descendant from past life." Guan asked, "Does that elder also know about this?" He was referring to the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. That rascal was still inside the house, recuperating, and did not eavesdrop on their conversation. "Perhaps," Ji Xiaoyu replied, her face showing some impatience, unsure if it was because of Long Qing or Jiang Qiong. Guan clenched the fate-determining pen in his hand and, after hesitating for a moment, said, "No, I can't abandon him. He sees me as a father. How could I banish him? So what if there's a great karma? Maybe by the day I die, he will not have faced his karmic retribution yet." Looking at Gu Ans' determined face, Ji Xiaoyu felt frustrated. Why was this man so stubborn? What if he brings catastrophe to the entire Medicine Valley, or even to the Supreme Sect? Ji Xiaoyu asked with suppressed anger. Guan said sternly, "Your karma is not simple, either. If you encountered trouble, would I have to avoid you to prevent misunderstandings? Impossible. I can't do it. Guan, am not that kind of person." His words rang with conviction, causing Ji Xiaoyu's expression to soften. Indeed, Women will be women, always finding an excuse to get going. Guan was sure that Ji Xiaoyu was simply jealous of Jiang Qiao. Ji Xiaoyu huffed, "You always say nice things. If that day really comes, I bet you'll run faster than anyone." Guan clutched his chest, feigning heartache, and said, "You actually think that of me?" Ji Xiaoyu couldn't help but smother a laugh, giving him a look. She walked beside Guan, a book appearing in her hand, which she placed on the table. Guan fixed his eyes on it. It only had one character, Dragon. Ji Xiaoyu explained, "This is a book I dreamed of in my past life. The Reincarnation Path Emperor was even holding it. It records the evolution of a family clan. You like this kind of book, don't you? Take a look, but do not spread it around." Guan couldn't help asking, "Dragon? It wouldn't be related to Long Qing, would it?" Ji Xiaoyu did not elaborate and turned to leave. When she closed the door this time, she wasn't as forceful, gently shutting it. Chapter 375, Reincarnation. The mysterious senior brother Ji Xiaoyu left, and Guan sat down, picked up the book she had left behind, and began to read. Soon he became immersed in it. This book mainly recorded the legend of Long Xian, the old ancestor of the dragon family, who is known as the Dragon Emperor, the strongest in the universe. He established the battle court, swept through great heaven and earth, and traversed reincarnation. There is no mention of Long Zhan in the book, as if Long Xian was the primordial ancestor of the dragon family. Starting from Long Xian, generation by generation, the dragon family produced many glorious individuals. One of the masters of the Reincarnation Path Emperor was from the dragon family, which was also the origin of Ji family's heavenly dragon, demon-suppressing form. In the end, during its prime, the dragon family encountered oppression from a mysterious existence. The book speculated it might be a curse, or maybe a punishment from heavenly Tao, because the dragon family acted recklessly and arrogantly in their strength. They had merits, but also sins. The dragon family declined rapidly. The clan dissolved, and the descendants fled to different universes. From the establishment of the dragon family, to their prosperity, and then to their downfall, the story was poignant and stirring, leaving an endless aftertaste. The author did not comment on the dragon family, but continued to narrate the rise and fall of the dragon family from an objective perspective. After finishing the book, Guan also felt quite emotional. Before Long Xian, the dragon family had also experienced such cycles of reincarnation under the leadership of Long Zhan. From the content of the book, Long Xian re-established the dragon family and rebuilt the battle court after Long Zhan's death. For Long Xian was very strong from the beginning. Guan thought of the last meeting between Long Zhan and Long Xian, where the father and son parted ways. Long Xian did not understand Long Zhan's actions, but in the end, Long Xian chose to inherit Long Zhan's legacy and re-establish the dragon family and the battle court, which made him feel the longing Long Xian had for Long Zhan. Eons passed, and whether it was Long Xian or the dragon family, all had become a thing of the past and were being erased. On the path of immortal cultivation, how high must one reach to truly achieve immortality, to exist eternally? Guan turned his head to look out the window at the sky, his thoughts drifting. It wasn't until the evening that he put the book away and then got up to go downstairs. Just as he went downstairs, he heard Long Qing shouting at a distance. That kid was over 100 years old, yet still acted like a child. Guan smiled and then approached the blood prison great saint, letting him carry him to patrol the third Medicine Valley. "Master, that kid Long Qing is becoming more and more presumptuous. Can you raise my cultivation level? Otherwise, they'll be bullied to death by him. And what about the white spirit rat? That fat rat is getting faster and faster, but its cultivation level hasn't improved much, and it can't even speak human words." Blood Prison Great Saint spoke with a tone of grievance. He was of the Mayana realm. How could he be bullied by Long Qing? Guan wanted to say that it was normal for you to not win against Long Qing, who was born in the Nirvana realm. Do not compare yourself with others. Everyone has their own path. You should look to the future, Guan said earnestly. blood-prisoned great saint's eyes lit up, and he was immediately invigorated. Did his master's words mean he would be a focus of cultivation in the future? The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He stopped thinking about being bullied by Long Qing and the White Spirit Rat and started to fantasize about dominating the world. He wanted to become the strongest great saint under the heavens, sweeping across the land. If outsiders from outer heaven attacked, and he was not an opponent, then the master would take action, shocking all beings. Just thinking about it was thrilling. On the surface, he would be the strongest, and enemies would conspire against him. Who would have thought that there would be an even more terrifying existence behind him? On a resplendent golden palace, the holy minister was sitting on a chair, with steps behind him leading up to an empty throne. A row of figures stood in the hall. Among them was the Candle World Saint King, who had once been responsible for negotiating with the Dark Battle Emperor. Yang Jian stood beside the Candle World Saint King, dressed in silver battle armor, with a three-pointed two-bladed knife floating behind him. Even though his realm was not as high as those around him, his aura was substantial. All the figures in the hall were holy kings of the holy court, and they were not too restrained in front of the holy minister. The holy minister's gaze swept over the 17 holy kings, paused on Yang Jian for 2 breaths, and then moved away. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you haven't forgotten the calamity of the heavenly demon from 50 years ago, the holy minister said nonchalantly. A burly holy king immediately replied, "It wasn't long ago. How could we forget? Whatever it is, holy minister, just give the order." His Majesty once said, "In his absence, we were to listen to you." The other holy kings voiced their concurrence. Yang Jian remained silent, but his gaze was on the holy minister. The holy minister showed a smile and said, "That chaos was certainly just a precursor. Yuan Shu ancestor from the Immortal dynasty opened the reincarnation vortex, which still hangs high in the sky. I wish to dispatch you into the vortex to find His Majesty. Who knows what year you will return when you leave? Take time to consider it." Upon hearing these words, the holy king's expressions shifted slightly. That reincarnation vortex was not under the control of the holy court, and no one knew what lay within. The hall fell silent, with no one immediately agreeing. The holy minister was not in a hurry, patiently waiting. He raised his right hand, and a golden light orb condensed in his palm. He stared at the golden orb, as if peeking into something. "I will go." A voice rang out, not loud but firm in tone, causing the holy kings to turn their heads to look. The speaker was Yang Jian. A holy king taunted, "That makes sense. The Candle World Saint King just went through reincarnation. Who could be more suitable?" The Candle World Saint King glanced at Yang Jian, deep in thought. The holy minister, still staring at the golden light orb in his hand, asked indifferently, "Anyone else?" "I will go," the Candle World Saint King said. These holy kings were astonished, having not expected him to agree. It wasn't his usual style of conduct. Yang Jian also glanced at the Candle World Saint King. The holy minister nodded and continued waiting. Realizing the holy minister was still waiting, the holy kings sensed something and their faces turned unsightly. One of the holy kings asked, "Holy minister, must we agree?" "It's entirely voluntary." The words of the holy minister allowed the holy kings to breathe a sigh of relief. But then the holy minister's voice rose again. "I assume you are all voluntarily going? I haven't misjudged you, have I?" The holy kings were shocked and looked at the holy minister in disbelief. As for Yang Jian, his expression remained calm, as if he had already foreseen this turn of events. The holy minister raised his right hand, and the golden orb in his hand burst into a dazzling light, making his expression seem even colder. "You must go to reincarnation. For you, it is an opportunity, your chance to strike at higher realms. Of course, the premise is that you survive. In reincarnation, there are countless great powers experiencing reincarnation tribulations. Act with extra caution and do not disturb those unrelated to the holy court." The holy minister's indifferent tone set this matter in stone, leaving the holy king's faces extremely unsightly. In the depths of autumn, inside the mansion courtyard, Guan was drinking wine, while Xiaochuan swept the grounds nearby. With so many servants in the house, and you being able to cast spells, why bother to sweep the grounds yourself? Guan asked, his divine thought gazing skyward. He saw 17 figures from the holy court flying toward the reincarnation vortex, among them Yang Jian. These people threw themselves into the reincarnation vortex without hesitation, and immediately after, their presences completely vanished, which piqued Guan's interest in the reincarnation vortex. What exactly is reincarnation like inside there? As Xiaochuan swept, he laughed and said, "Isn't this just a habit I've picked up?" "It's what you taught me, brother." Guan turned to Xiaochuan and asked, "Have you not cultivated these years?" Xiaochuan's cultivation level had stagnated for decades, and his lifespan had shown no sign of increasing. Old age makes it hard to persist. Besides, my children and grandchildren often bring me troublesome matters, Xiaochuan said with a shake of his head and a wry smile. He added, "I'm 472 years old this year. I'm content. I never imagined I would live for so many years." He began to recount tales from his childhood. Each time Guan visited, Xiaochuan would reminisce about the past. On this occasion, however, Guan wasn't listening attentively. His thoughts were wandering. Seeing Yang Jian and the others enter reincarnation, a bold idea suddenly came to him. If he sealed Xiaochuan's memories and then implanted a destruction Dao seal into his body, no matter what kind of reincarnation he underwent, Guan would be able to find him. When the time came, he could help him recover his memories. Wouldn't they be able to reunite? He had tried his best to impart the traditions of immortal cultivation to Xiaochuan, but alas, Xiaochuan's maximum lifespan still increased very slowly. Even though he could elevate Xiaochuan's cultivation level, it didn't affect his maximum lifespan. The higher he reached in realm, the more acutely Guan felt the terrifying decree of the ineffable destiny. "Xiaochuan, if there is an afterlife, would you still want me to find you?" Guan suddenly asked. Xiaochuan stopped his sweeping, turned his head to look at Guan, and cheerfully said, "Brother, if you could find me, you must have become an immortal, right? If you don't mind, I would indeed hope to see you again. But don't worry about it too much. Everyone has their destiny. I'm truly only grateful to you." Without Guan, what would his life be like today? His only regret in this life was that he failed to repay his mentor. "I'm just speaking hypothetically. If I become that powerful one day, I would need to consider whether or not to help you escape the suffering of reincarnation," Guan said with a laugh. Xiaochuan responded with laughter, "If there's a chance for that, I would definitely want it. So, let me thank you in advance for taking care of me, brother." Becoming an immortal? How distant a dream. Xiaochuan had heard of the existence of the immortal path realm, but he had not heard of those who possessed eternal life, nor had he heard of the true immortal gods. Those who were comparable to immortals were nothing more than powerful cultivators. If you undergo reincarnation, in what kind of family would you wish to be born in the next life? Guan continued to ask, as he poured himself another drink. Xiaochuan took interest, set aside the broom, walked over, and sat down, starting to ponder as he sank into reverie. His requirements were not high, born to parents that could accompany him, and hopefully with better aptitude for cultivation. Sunset gave way to moonrise. The two talked into the night, and at Xiaochuan's invitation, Guan stayed at the estate. He left at dawn. Xiaochuan, assisted by a young girl, watched Guan depart. The girl, filled with curiosity, watched Guan's retreating figure. She turned her head to Xiaochuan and asked, "Great-grandfather, who exactly is he? Is he really your mentor? He looks so young." Xiaochuan stroked his beard and laughed. "Yes, he's my mentor, but as to who he really is, I'm not sure myself. My mentor is very mysterious. Maybe," the girl pressed, "maybe what?" Xiaochuan shook his head and walked away. As Guan disappeared at the end of the street, the girl hurriedly followed her great-grandfather, pressing him with questions. Chapter 376. The Smallness of Heaven and Earth Noon. Tianya Valley. Guin rode upon the blood prison great saint toward the mouth of the valley, with an Xin following close by. This was not the first time Gu and had brought an Xin to Tinya Valley, but every time she came, she was very happy, primarily because the three monkey demons of Tinya Valley had a good relationship with her, and she had specially brought along many pastries. From a distance, Luo Hun caught sight of Guin, and a smile spread across his face as he went to greet him. Guin, His Majesty, brought someone back with him, someone who came especially to find you. Guess who it is? Luo Hun arrived beside the blood prison great saint and asked with a smile. Guin already knew of the person's arrival, but since the other party practiced a certain energy-concealing sorcery, he did not want to point it out directly, so he asked with a puzzled look, "Who? Am I familiar with them?" Luo Hun smiled mysteriously and said, "Since you can't guess, let's go have a look." Guin nodded. With Luo Hun leading the way, they made their way to a courtyard. Before even entering the courtyard, Guin heard the laughter of Li Xiandao. As soon as the blood prison great saint stepped into the courtyard, Guin's gaze fell on the person beside Li Xiandao. Wuxin, Void Crossing Realm, 3rd layer 469/1800/4200. After many years apart, Wuxin had reached the Void Crossing Realm. Such progress at his age could indeed be considered incredibly swift. The current Wuxin still looked like a monk, but he was not wearing a kasaya. Instead, he donned a brocaded robe that restrained his body, and there was a certain commanding presence about him that the young monk of the past didn't possess. Upon seeing Guin, Wuxin's face showed excitement. He stood up, somewhat at a loss for what to do. Guin dismounted and approached the table to salute Li Xiandao, followed by an Xin, whose eyes were filled with curiosity. "Senior brother," Wuxin looked at Guin, suddenly at a loss for words. Guin looked at him, eyes widening in astonishment as he asked, "You're Wuxin?" Wuxin hurriedly nodded. Just as he was about to say something, Li Xiandao interrupted with a smile. "Let's sit down and talk." He motioned to an Xin with his hand, indicating for her to sit down as well. Luo Hun didn't stay in the courtyard, leading the blood prison great saint away to not disturb the four of them. "I really didn't recognize you just now. You've changed so much. How have these years treated you? I heard before that you've achieved miracle after miracle under His Majesty's command." Guin asked warmly, easing Wuxin's awkwardness as the master and disciple caught up with each other. Wuxin was originally a spy planted by the Thousand Autumn Pavilion inside the Supreme Sect. The Taoist expansion skill, the precursor to the primordial reincarnation skill, was transmitted to Guin by him. Centuries had gone by, and with the power of the Taoist expansion skill, Wuxin's maximum lifespan had reached 4,200 years. It seemed that Wuxin's own talent was not lacking, but it was only because he practiced the Taoist expansion skill that it had not been revealed. In the past, the Taizong continent was so backward that even the Mystic Heart realm was rarely seen. The fact that Wuxin encountered an immortal-seeking Taoist of the Nirvana realm at a young age proved his exceptional chi fortune. An Xin sat obediently to the side, listening attentively to her master and grandmaster catching up, curious about Wuxin. Li Xiandao did not interrupt, listening to their conversation with a smile. Guin silently reflected on Li Zuando's talent. Li Xiandao now had reached the 5th layer of the Mystic Heart realm, surpassing LV Baitian, yet his public cultivation level, like Guin's, only appeared as that of the nascent soul realm. After a while, Wuxin turned to look at Li Xiandao, who spoke with a smile, in planning to send him to an immortal mansion for cultivation. "Guin, would you like to go?" Guin shook his head. "I'd rather not. Thank you for the gracious offer, uncle." That so-called immortal mansion was, after all, similar to the factions like the Starseed congregations. He was not interested in it. Li Xiandao was not surprised. Over the years, he had offered many opportunities to Guin, all of which were rejected. He understood that this young man had no desire to seek immortality. "Senior brother, let's go together. It's a rare opportunity. Now that I've achieved the cultivation level of the Void Crossing realm, I can surely protect you," Wuxin urged. An Xin wanted to laugh upon hearing this. Was the void-crossing realm really that strong? She did not show it on her face, as Guin had reminded her many times to control her facial expressions. Guin laughed. I really don't want to go. I'm quite comfortable now. Going to the Immortal Mansion would surely be stressful, and it's not certain that I would undergo a transformation. You go ahead. They'll be here waiting for you to tell me about your experiences in the Immortal Mansion when you return. Despite Wuxin's continued persuasion, it was to no avail. No matter how much he insisted, Guin remained unmoved. If you don't want to go, then don't. It's fine. Staying in the Supreme Sect also offers plenty of opportunities, Li Xiandao said, putting an end to Wuxin's urging. Li Xiandao then looked at Guin and asked, Guin, what do you think the Taizong dynasty should do next for its development? Guin asked in surprise. Isn't everything fine now? Why do you ask? Li Xiandao shook his head. It only seems fine on the surface. The internal class structure is solidifying. Life may be better than before, but the opportunities for commoners to knock on the doors of the immortal sects have not increased. Guin fell silent. Each year, the number of cultivators in the immortal cultivation world grows, but the vast majority are from families of cultivators. It's highly likely that a farmer's offspring will remain a farmer. Wuxin also fell in a deep thought. As he served Li Xiandao, he saw even more issues. The current families were able to establish contacts overseas, and through various means such as intermarriage, sworn brotherhood, and exchange of interests, they were quickly growing stronger with unfathomable depths, making it difficult for Li Xiandao to suppress them. Who knows how powerful the entities backing those families could be? I do admire the immortal dynasty. If only all of the Taizong dynasty's citizens could become immortals, that would be wonderful. I wonder if I'll live to see that day, Li Xiandao said cheerfully. He was just being precautious. For now, his imperial power was quite stable. Guin continued the conversation. If that day really comes, who knows how long it will take? His tone was filled with emotion. He began to talk with Li Xiandao about the future visions, while Wuxin occasionally interjected and an Xian listened throughout. Gradually, the topic shifted to Liya. After discussing Liya for a while, Li Xiandao asked, What about Yang Jian? It's been a while since we've seen him. Ling Tian often talks to me about him. I'm not sure where he's gone, but with his talent, he probably won't encounter any trouble, Guin said, shaking his head. Wuxin asked curiously, Brother, I heard from His Majesty that Yang Jian's talent is no less than in Hao's. Guin smiled and said, I'm not sure about that. They are both stronger than me anyway. You can ask an Xian. She grew up with an Hao. As he spoke, he gestured towards an Xian beside him, which made Wuxin take a new look at her. Could it be that this woman had such a connection? An Xian hurriedly said, I'm not in a position to judge, but my brother once said he looks forward to a battle with Yang Jian. Wuxin sighed. My cultivation speed is considered fast, but compared to those favored by heaven, it's still far behind. I wonder what their cultivation levels are now. Li Xiandao looked at an Xian, then glanced at Guin, contemplative. The four of them chatted for an ancient hour before Guin, accompanied by an Xian, stood up to pick herbs. Once they finished, they said their farewells and left. Wuxin watched Guin's retreating back, his eyes brimming with melancholy. Li Xiandao smiled and asked, What's the matter? Do you feel the relationship has become distant? Wuxin replied, A little, but it's more about regret. With brother's temperament, I'm afraid he won't rise to become an immortal, alas. In years past, Guin had seemed so formidable in his eyes. Brother, Xiaochuan started in shock, unable to complete his sentence. Guin turned to him and asked, Now, do you have any regrets about not striving harder in cultivation before? After hearing this, Xiaochuan calmed down and smiled. Regrets? Seeing the scene sooner has only shown me how minute I really am. He looked at Guin, hesitated for a moment, and then asked, Brother, what is your relationship with Sword Venerable Fu Dao? Could it be that you are Sword Venerable Fu Dao? In Xiaochuan's eyes, Guin seemed so mystical at that moment, with golden Tao patterns on his forehead flickering like flames, and the Immortal King crown shining peculiarly, making Guin look akin to an immortal lord descending. Chapter 377, Promise of the Next Life, facing Xiaochuan's questioning. Guin counter-questioned, "Is this matter very important to you?" Xiaochuan caught the implied meaning in Gu An's words and lamented, "Yes, it's no longer important. In fact, 300 years ago, I felt my life was drawing close to its end. Over the years, I have often fallen into an indescribable state of sudden enlightenment. It must have been you, elder brother, secretly helping me." "Thank you, elder brother." He looked at Guin, his expression solemn. Guin's mouth twitched upwards as he asked, "Just verbal thanks?" Xiaochuan replied helplessly, "That's all I can do. What else could I do for you now? If elder brother needs my soul, just take it." Guin glanced at him and said dryly, making it sound like elder brother is some demon cultivator. Wasn't Sword Venerable Fudao initially considered a demon cultivator? Coincidentally, I do have a soul device here. I could use you as the main soul, condemning you to never transcend. Sure, I would love that." Although Xiaochuan still looked elderly, his soul body was spirited, as if he had returned to his younger days. The two bickered in this way as they drew closer to the reincarnation vortex. The reason Xiaochuan could see Guin was because Guin had utilized the power of cause and effect. Even a free immortal could not see Guin if they were here. After a long time, Xiaochuan looked up at the imposing reincarnation vortex and curiously asked, "Does entering there mean I will be reincarnated?" "Yes, that's correct. I can only escort you here," Guin replied softly, also looking up. Xiaochuan turned to Guin and said, "Elder brother, go back now. I'm already satisfied that you could escort me here." Guin gazed at him and with a smile said, "Well, meet in the next life." "The next life?" Xiaochuan blinked his eyes. He didn't question Guin's words, but internally marveled. How profound must Sword Venerable Fudao's Tao be to see through reincarnation? After pondering for a moment, he said, "If I remain mediocre in my next life, elder brother, don't find me. Let me lead an ordinary life. However, if one day I possess exceptional cultivation talents, then come find me and I'll still manage Medicine Valley for you." Guin smiled and nodded, then raised his right hand and pointed 2 fingers towards Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan was instantly immobilized, his eyes losing their sparkle. Guin used his own power of cause and effect to seal Xiaochuan's memories, to prevent them from being erased by reincarnation, then left a Destruction Tao seal within his soul body. The Destruction Tao seal would leave an eternal mark, making it easier for Guin to find Xiaochuan's reincarnated body later. Having done all this, Guin paused and watched as Xiaochuan headed towards the reincarnation vortex. He also had a basic understanding of the reincarnation rules. Long Zhan's heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma touched upon these rules, but it mainly relied on establishing connections through cause and effect with past lives. He still couldn't fathom the essence of reincarnation. In the divine origin great heaven and earth, there also wasn't a complete order of reincarnation. After death, a soul would ascend and fly to outer heaven, being devoured by reincarnation rules at a certain height, disappearing without a trace. How one naturally reincarnated was unknown to anyone and was difficult to trace. However, great beings of fortune would cause unusual phenomena in heaven and earth when reincarnated. After Xiaochuan had disappeared into the reincarnation vortex, Guin finally returned to the third Medicine Valley. Several days later, near midday, as Guin was reading a book inside his house, an Xin came to find him. "Master, Uncle Xiaochuan has passed away. He didn't want to trouble you, so he had his descendants deliver this letter later." An Xin handed over a letter to Guin, and while carefully observing his expression, in front of an Xin, Guin did not need to pretend. He took the letter directly and opened it to read. The content of the letter wasn't much different from what Xiaochuan had said before he entered reincarnation, but after reading it, Guan still felt somewhat melancholic. He had tried his best to help Xiaochuan, but unfortunately, Xiaochuan did not possess the fighting spirit like Yilan, Zhenqin, or an Exian. To put it accurately, Xiaochuan's talents were inferior and no different from most ordinary people, which was why it was hard for him to maintain his drive. Guan, however, wasn't too saddened. After learning about the existence of reincarnation tribulation, his aversion to reincarnation wasn't as strong. When cultivators reached the free immortal realm, they ultimately had to face reincarnation. Not everyone could break through by evolving their lifespan like Guan, and he couldn't use his lifespan to help others skip their reincarnation tribulation. He was curious about reincarnation tribulation, wondering if it only counted after reaching the free immortal realm or if previous reincarnations counted as well. It was said that reincarnation tribulation had no pattern. Reincarnation might not necessarily occur in the current era or world, which was why it was hard to trace Shengxin's whereabouts. Guan put the letter down and looked at an Exian, asking, "Is there anything else?" An Exian inquired, "Master, are you doing all right?" Guan smiled and said, "What? Do I really need to drown my sorrows in alcohol? Hurry back to your cultivation. I don't want to receive your last letter." Hearing this, an Exian stuck out her tongue and immediately bowed to take her leave. Guan thought for a moment, stood up, and walked over to a bookshelf to take down a brocade box, placing Xiaochuan's last letter inside it. Chapter 378. The talent of a heavenly pride Gu and sensed an extraordinary reincarnation aura emanating from Zhang Shi. He speculated that Zhang Shi had reincarnated and wasn't just any ordinary reincarnation, but bore some similarity to Ji Xiaoyu. Could it be that Zhang Shi was a great power currently undergoing a reincarnation tribulation? Guan pondered this in his mind, but did not continuously stare at Zhang Shi. After a while, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord successfully defeated his opponent and immediately waved to Zhang Shi. This fellow actually claimed to have a 30% chance of winning against him. To him, this was an outright provocation. A nascent soul realm cultivator daring to fantasize about winning against him? Did he think he was Guan? Under the encouragement of a group of cultivators, Zhang Shi walked to the chess table, sat down, and started to play chess with the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who allowed him the first move. A fierce battle thus began. Guan watched for a while before moving to the side to find others to play chess with. Whether Zhang Shi could win against the Nine-Finger Divine Lord or not, Guan didn't care. He just wanted to relax for a while. Half an hour later, Guan had won 2 consecutive games of chess and stood up to leave. Zhang Shi and the Nine-Finger Divine Lord were still playing. At that moment, Zhang Shi furrowed his eyebrows, hesitating over his moves, while the Nine-Finger Divine Lord wore a smug smile, mockingly criticizing his slow play, accusing him of trying to wear out his opponent. Guan smiled and walked toward the distant mystic pure tree. The white spirit rat was napping under the tree, while an Exian was practicing chi absorption cultivation. This tree had become their fixed cultivation spot, which other disciples couldn't enjoy unless they performed exceptionally well. Approximately 30 minutes passed. Zhang Shi put down his chess piece and said, "I lost." The Nine-Finger Divine Lord, smiling smugly, said, "To beat me, you need another 100,000 years." Zhang Shi stood up, bowed to him, and then took his leave. Losing interest, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord stood up, making room for others. The audience wasn't too shocked. After all, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was the second-best chess player in Medicine Valley, second only to the founder. Gu and Zhang Shi began wandering around the valley, moving along the wooden railing, admiring the orderly, splendid medicine gardens. A figure brushed past him, causing a slight change in his expression. He turned his head to look. Long Qing was walking briskly toward Shinxinzi, not noticing him. "This aura, the Dragon Clan," Zhang Shi murmured softly, though his voice was quite faint. Guan, who was nearby playing with the white spirit rat, heard it. Guan kept his composure, but his curiosity about Zhang Shi's true identity grew. Zhang Shi watched Long Qing leave. He did not linger for too long, but chose to continue his stroll. Gradually, he passed by the venerable pavilion of Guan. The door opened, and a figure suddenly blocked his path. Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Seeing the suddenly appearing Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, Zhang Shi was not frightened, but instead studied him. With a cold expression on his face and a shift in his divine thought, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor formed a barrier around them, ensuring no one but Guan could hear their conversation. "Who are you?" the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor asked sternly. Smiling, Zhang Shi responded, "Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, since you are here, I presume one of the Yin-Yang Four Emperors, the Reincarnation Path Emperor, has also reincarnated here?" As soon as these words were spoken, a murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Zhang Shi continued, "There's no need to be tense. The Reincarnation Path Emperor's undergoing of the Reincarnation Tribulation is already public knowledge, and the Holy Court will not intervene." Hearing this, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's expression softened. He inhaled deeply and asked, "May I know the elder's name?" Shaking his head, Zhang Shi replied, "I will not tell you my background to avoid bringing trouble to you and the Reincarnation Path Emperor. Today, I came here merely for chess." The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor fell silent for a moment, then stepped aside, no longer blocking Zhang Shi. Zhang Shi stepped forward, walking past him. "The chief fortune of this Medicine Valley is on the verge of erupting. Tell the Reincarnation Path Emperor, since he has entered the Reincarnation Tribulation, not to cling to the mortal dust, as the biggest taboo in the Reincarnation Tribulation is trying to be a savior." Leaving these words behind, Zhang Shi walked away without turning back. Guan, hearing this, reduced his interest in Zhang Shi by a notch. Zhang Shi actually mistook Ji Xiaoyu for Sword Venerable Fu Dao. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor didn't argue for Ji Xiaoyu and quickly disappeared from the spot. In the time that followed, Zhang Shi toured the Third Medicine Valley and then flew toward the Outer Gate City. Seeing that Zhang Shi had no intention of causing trouble, Guan stopped paying attention to him. Most days in the Third Medicine Valley were uneventful. Occasionally encountering a being of extraordinary origin was just a minor episode in Guan's life. 12 years later, boom, a figure descended from the sky, crashing into the forest, creating a terrifying wind that uprooted several trees, sending grass and debris flying. Dressed in white, an Xian landed on a tree trunk. She held a treasure sword, looking up with furrowed brows, her hand trembling as she gripped the sword. In the distance, the blood-prisoned great saint crawled on the cliff, enduring the fierce wind, his gaze fixed on a distant battle. Guan stood in the air, holding the Qinghong sword, looking down at an Xian with a smile. "Is this all you've got?" On hearing this, a cold light flashed in Zin's eyes. She took a step forth, appearing behind Guan like a blink, her treasure sword cleaving horizontally, the strong sword intent materializing tangibly. Guan drew his sword with a backhanded grip, blocking Zin's sword intent and following the blade's direction, scattering the distant sea of clouds. Seeing that an Xian from the 9th level of the Divinity Transformation Realm could manifest such sword intent, Guan was secretly pleased. The girl had cultivated diligently, and it was not in vain. Just her sword intent alone was comparable to the Void Crossing Realm. Combined with her stepping path of Age's Step, her strength far surpassed the Divinity Transformation Realm, and she was starting to show the makings of a prodigy. When an Xian found that her sword intent couldn't shake Guan, she stepped again and appeared above the forest several kilometers away, her treasure, sword no longer in hand. Her eyes narrowed, and she pointed at Guan with her right hand's finger turned into a sword. Boom! A dominant, vast sword intent descended from the sky. Guan looked up and saw a beam of light that seemed to slash down from outer heaven. The beam erupted with sword chi, forming a brilliant sword shadow 100 meters long. It was a magnificent sight. Guan's lips curved up. The girl had finally mastered it. His repeated preachings over the years were not in vain. The brilliant sword's shadow fell with incredible speed, engulfing Guan's figure and then crashing into the mountains and rivers. The ground shook, clouds of dust rose rapidly, and fierce winds ravaged everything in all directions. It was like the apocalypse, shaking the entire vast island. Blood Prison Great Saint watched, his heart secretly startled. He too recognized that Enzin's sword intent had surpassed the divinity transformation realm. The master had really raised this girl well. In that moment, Blood Prison Great Saint became even more convinced that the ancient treasure body possessed by Yang Jian was bestowed by his master. And Xian gasped for breath, the winds tossing her hair. She kept her gaze fixed ahead, not believing her swordsmanship could hurt her mentor. She was on the alert for her mentor's sudden reappearance. Snap! Suddenly, a hand landed on Enzin's shoulder, making her heart leap and her formidable presence scatter. Guan withdrew his hand and smiled. Not bad. Today's performance finally satisfied me. You are worthy to chase after Hauer and Jianer. And Xian turned her head and saw her mentor's smiling face. Suppressing her palpitations, she forced a smile and said, "It's all thanks to your excellent teaching, mentor. They never received such devoted guidance from you." She suddenly remembered a legend from the Supreme Sect. It was said that before Sword Venerable Fu Dao killed someone, he liked to pat their shoulder. She had thought it a mere rumor before, but now it seemed otherwise. Too terrifying. Just being patted like that made her feel suffocated. The terror of feeling her soul scatter was beyond comparison. Guan sheathed the Qinghong sword and turned to an Exan, saying, "You lack a suitable sword, but I will not help you find one. Use your sword intent to temper your own sword." And Xian wiped the sweat from her forehead and asked, "Sword intent can also temper a sword?" "Of course. When you become powerful enough, your sword can become an immortal path, supreme treasure." Immortal path, supreme treasure? And Zin's eyes lit up, her breathing became hurried. With the Taitsong continent gradually catching up to the immortal cultivation world, the strength of immortal path, supreme treasures sank deep into people's hearts. Such treasures were considered church treasures even overseas, and Li Ya's divine exotic city possessed only a pseudo-immortal path, supreme treasure. Thinking about one day tempering her own immortal path, supreme treasure, and Xian felt extremely excited. What level of Tao would she have then? She began to look forward to that day. What would Hao's reaction be when he saw her then? "Let's go, it's time to head home." Guan flew toward Blood Prison Great Saint, and an Xian hurriedly followed. "Mentor, you know so much about Immortal Path Supreme Treasures. You couldn't be the legendary Immortal King, could you? At least you're at the same realm as the Immortal King. I guess you were at least at the 7th layer of Immortal Tao." "No, the 8th. And Xian excitedly asked. The existence of the 9 heavens of Immortal Path had also been known in the continent's immortal cultivation world. She had heard that the most powerful individuals had only reached the 4th layer of Immortal Tao. She estimated her mentor's cultivation level as 7th layer, which was already a high estimate. Guan laughed. "Not that impressive. I am just a loose immortal." "I understand. A loose immortal without a fixed power, right?" And Xian giggled. The Holy Court had named Sword Venerable Fu Dao as the Holy Sword. Mortal World Peak named the mentor as Peak Master. The Supreme Sect even reserved a position in the Venerable Pavilion for the mentor, and there was also Immortal Seeking Island overseas. She guessed her mentor had even more backgrounds that hadn't been revealed. Guan smiled and remained silent, not bothering to explain. In Enzin's eyes, 9 heavens of Immortal Path was the limit of Immortal Path. How could he, someone who had surpassed the 9 heavens of Immortal Path, explain that to her? Summer insects cannot speak of ice. 30 minutes later, Guan rode on Blood Prison Great Saint and returned to 3rd Medicine Valley, with an Xian following close behind. Just arrived, Guin sensed a familiar presence. Chapter 379 Cultivation in the Tao Realm. Zhou Tongyu. Unification Realm Level 1534/3000/3100. He had actually reached the Unification Realm. It seems he had had some significant opportunities these past years. Unfortunately, his maximum lifespan has not improved. Guin thought to himself as he looked at Zhou Tongyi's lifespan. Although Zhou Tongyi's maximum lifespan had not improved, if he could reach the Nirvana realm before the age of 3100, he could achieve Nirvana and prolong his life. Guin made his way to Zhou Tongyi's side and raised his hand to pat his shoulder, only to be grasped by his right hand. Zhou Tongyu tilted his head to look at Guin. Then his stern face showed a look of surprise. He turned around, released Guin's hand, and looked him over carefully. Guin thought to himself that allowing Zhou Tongyu to catch his hand was to compensate for his regret, knowing that there were few who could interrupt Sword Venerable Fudeo's shoulder-patting motion. "Brother Gu, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. You look much better than before," Zhou Tongyu said joyfully. Guin smiled and nodded. "Indeed, it's been a long time. Shall we find a place to drink?" "Sure." Guin, hearing his agreement, raised his hand to signal him to walk in a different direction. An Xian had met Zhou Tongyu and had also heard about his loss to Yang Jian. She could feel that Zhou Tongyi's aura was very strong. If she wanted to surpass Yang Jian, she would have to defeat Zhou Tongyu first. Zhou Tongyu, unaware of what the woman behind him was thinking, had not come to find Guin for the sake of a challenge. He was now over 500 years old, not as petty or stubborn as before. His vision was higher, and he was now pursuing something higher. They sat down in a courtyard, and an Xian started to arrange the food and drinks. Guin and Zhou Tongyu made small talk, each speaking about their own general situation over the past years. After chatting for quite a while, the two laughed and raised their glasses, asking, "Where is Yang Jian? Why don't we see him around? I heard he's been gone for a long time." Guin replied, "When children grow up, they must spread their wings and fly. This Medicine Valley of mine can't keep him here." After Yang Jian, there were several servant disciples in the Third Medicine Valley who had a maximum lifespan of more than 4,000 years. But Guin did not take on a disciple specially. Instead, he let those disciples with hidden talent go with the flow of the Medicine Valley. Within the Third Medicine Valley, as long as one performed well, they would inevitably establish their foundation, especially those disciples whose talent had not been unearthed who could benefit even more. No matter how we fight, we must not waste the overall power of the great heavenly spirit land. So we have organized this conference, allowing cultivators of both sides in each realm to have combat, and your victories or losses are related to the future development of the Immortal dynasty. Everyone's breathing hastened. They had known about this matter before coming. This conference was not only about the prosperity of the Immortal dynasty, but also a great opportunity for themselves. And Hao's eyes sparkled, and his fists tightened. Confident in a contest of the same realm, he was determined not to lose. The ancient Immortal Emperor was very pleased with the expressions of everyone in the hall. He saw their confidence. The top 3 in each realm can enter the Holy Court's Tao realm for cultivation, and the first place will even obtain an Immortal Path Supreme treasure that is unaffected by Chi fortune. The ancient Immortal Emperor began to talk about the rewards for the conference, exciting everyone present. Having the ancient Immortal Emperor announce the rewards publicly dispelled the last of their doubts. They had to give it their all instead of the rewards, and Hao looked forward to having a sufficiently strong opponent. He and Hao didn't need any supreme treasures. When his realm was high enough, he could dominate the world barehanded. The stronger his opponents, the happier he was. What he pursued was fame. He wanted to make a name for himself in the world. He wanted to make everyone in the supreme sect proud of him. Having reached this point, he felt that he was already capable of representing the supreme sect, even the entire Taitsong continent. He wanted those who had lost to him to take pride in their defeat. Controlling the world's holy court, huh? I hope you won't disappoint me. And Hao thought to himself, ignoring the latter part of what the ancient immortal emperor had said, not listening attentively. After a while, the crowd dispersed, and Hao followed them out of the grand hall. Outside the hall was a spectacular sight above the sea of clouds. Just as Hao was about to fly away, a voice called out to him. And Hao, the geniuses of the holy court are very strong. I've heard that there's an unprecedented talent in the mystic heart realm, hailed as having talent surpassing that of the holy god. Take this time to cultivate with me. And Hao turned to look. The speaker was a white-dressed woman as beautiful as a fairy, with a dignified posture, and her eyes looking towards him were like autumn waters, bright and moving. And Hao frowned and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but there's no need." Having said this, he turned and left. The woman in white stood there, stunned, seemingly not expecting such a decisive rejection from Hao. Whispers from the surrounding immortal spirits arose, curious about Hao's background, to dare to refuse a fairy's request. In the Immortal Dynasty, those who could be called fairies not only had to have a background, but also a strong cultivation level. And Hao had not even reached the Nirvana realm, which was worse than the lowest ranks of the Immortal Dynasty. Some attitude. Move forward 200 years, and with such cultivation level, he wouldn't even qualify to step into the Immortal Dynasty, someone muttered, earning the agreement of those around. The woman in white said nothing and turned to leave alone, completely indifferent to the gazes of others. On his way to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint, with an Xian following on the right, excitedly recounting the recent battle between Zhou Tongyu and Wu Ju. That Zhou Tongyu is incredible. His evil-suppressing golden body could actually withstand Wu Ju's fist technique. I thought he had no chance against Wu Ju. Master, is the evil-suppressing golden body considered an ancient treasure body? How could Yang Jian defeat Zhou Tongyu of the same realm? You aren't deceiving me, are you? Listening to Nzin's words, Guan also had many feelings. Zhou Tongyu had won, and he won very dominantly, avenging the shame of his defeat to Wu Ju many years ago. Now, it was Wu Ju's turn to taste the fall from the peak of the clouds. Guan did not go to comfort Wu Ju, since the elder of the sect had taken him away to heal after the battle, and he had returned to the Third Medicine Valley after watching the fight. The outcome of a single battle doesn't prove anything. If you don't work hard, you will eventually be surpassed by someone you've defeated. Right now, you have an advantage that others aren't aware of. You know the true cultivation level of no one else while you can find out theirs. Guan said, seizing the moment to teach an Xian. An Xian nodded and replied, Master, don't worry, I definitely won't become arrogant and complacent. Actually, the evil-suppressing golden body has its shortcomings too. There is a spot at the base of the neck. If it is struck hard, all the chi energy will be dislodged. Guan began to explain the techniques of the recent combat, and an Xian listened attentively. Knowing more was always good. If she ever encountered an enemy with the evil-suppressing golden body in the future, it could come in handy. The Blood Prison Great Saint was also listening seriously, more worried than in Zin's excitement. These guys were growing so fast. The strength exhibited by Zhou Tongyu, as well as Wu Ju, was surprising, deserving to be the geniuses of the great heavenly spirit land. The Blood Prison Great Saint was even more looking forward to the coming of the millennium. Guan had said that he would personally teach him how to cultivate at that time. What he needed to do now was to diligently cultivate the innate reincarnation skill, accumulate his cultivation, and build up momentum. Although he was a mount, Guan had not treated him harshly. He received just as many elixirs as an Xian. After returning to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan went upstairs alone. Someone was already waiting in the room. Shinjun. Seeing Shanjun sitting in his spot, Guan closed the door and asked, What paintings are you going to show me this time? He could feel that the atmosphere downstairs had once again become unnatural. Although the change was very subtle, it did not escape his senses. Shunjun put down the supreme secret records in her hand and said, I have comprehended a secret technique that can help improve one's talent. Would you like to learn it? Guan walked over to the table, took back his own copy of the supreme secret records, and then asked, what secret technique? Is it that powerful? Shunjun spoke mysteriously. It's really powerful. I've already practiced it, and it truly works. After training with this secret technique, I'm finding that practicing other skills yields twice the result with half the effort. Guan couldn't help but cast a lifespan detection on her. Shunjun, Void Crossing Realm Level 1543/2200/7200. Good Lord, her maximum lifespan had increased to 7,200 years. Guan was surprised. This girl really could gain enlightenment from music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. And her cultivation level was also growing fast. Chapter 380 Disaster, Judging by Shunjun's Limit Lifespan Increase. It couldn't be aimed at 9,999 years, could it? As a veteran actor, Gu An's face also involuntarily revealed a strange expression at this moment. He lectured Yilan, Zhenqin, and an Exine, putting in much effort, yet it paled in comparison to Shunjun's limit lifespan increase. It didn't make sense. Could there really be existences favored by the heavenly Tao in this world? Wu Ju was one, and so was Shunjun. Both didn't need the help of others, and their limit lifespans increased repeatedly on their own. Wait a minute. Guan suddenly realized something and spoke. Is that so? Then relay it to me. Shunjun promptly narrated the secret technique she comprehended, and Guan listened attentively. After a period equivalent to 30 minutes, Shunjun finished her narration and then looked at Guan with pride, awaiting his astonishment. Guan frowned and said, I don't understand. It feels profound. Is it qi cultivation first, or cultivating acupoints? Though he said this, in fact, he had already seen through this secret technique. This secret technique bore some resemblance to the primordial reincarnation skill. Both touched upon the reincarnation technique. However, for lower realm beings, the reincarnation technique was extremely complex and hard to comprehend. With Gu An's perspective, even letting top-tier geniuses cultivate this technique, it would be difficult for them to succeed in a short amount of time. He inferred that Shunjun first practiced this secret technique 7 years ago. Mastered it in just 7 years? Something was off unless she already knew it from before. Guan combined this with the changes in Shunjun's aura, and his speculation grew ever firmer. Previously, such beings were utterly inconspicuous, and now how could multiple appear? Guan thought for a moment. If he were merely a Taoist hidden immortal, it would be hard to see through reincarnation tribulation unless someone like Ji Xiaoyu, bearing an innate Taoist talisman and continuously awakening memories, made her reincarnation aura increasingly evident. Currently, it seemed Shunjun hadn't awakened any memories. She could only comprehend the cultivation technique. Looking across the world, there were very few beings immersed in reincarnation tribulation. Why did two appear by his side? Excluding Yang Jian as his cultivation level wasn't sufficient, and adding the previously passing Zhang Shi, Guan always felt there was an unseen mighty hand scheming against him. It couldn't just be a coincidence. You don't understand this? You're really dumb. Shunjun retorted with a glare, clearly displeased. It wasn't the response she wanted. Guan indignantly said, Who could understand this? Maybe I should have Ji Xiaoyu come and listen? As soon as Shunjun heard this, she hastily rejected, That won't do. Chapter 381 Variables, Hidden Spirit Palace. Ever since Shunjun had left, every time Guan saw Ji Xiaoyu, she would ignore him, feigning ignorance. In the days that followed, rumors began to spread in Medicine Valley, suggesting that there was a falling out between the Master and Elder Ji. This led an Xian to inevitably inquire about this matter when she accompanied Gu into Mortal World Peak. Don't gossip. I haven't had any conflict with her. Guin gave an Xian a stern look and spoke without mincing his words. An Xian giggled and did not press further. Instead, she went to the side to begin her cultivation. At Mortal World Peak, she did not need to hide her cultivation level, so she cherished the opportunity to cultivate there. Guin descended the mountain alone, wandering aimlessly on the mountain. Because of the previous controversy over stealing herbs, Guin deliberately slowed down the pace of harvesting on Mortal World Peak. However, even so, with the constantly increasing production from the Outer World Cave, he was already able to amass nearly 4 million years of lifespan every year. His total lifespan had exceeded 400 million years. At this rate, Guin could also become rapidly stronger. Therefore, he now tried to keep a low profile, taking fewer disciples and intervening less to avoid accelerating the pace of the major changes in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Walking along the mountain path, Gu Ans Divine thought reached out to Zhu Shi. Zhu Shi was at the lowest-ranked sea peak, where Mortal World Peak had purposely allocated a sea area for disciples below the Immortal Path realm, and only those who had reached the Nirvana realm could pay tribute to divine peaks like Dingtian Peak. Years had passed, and Zhu Shi had become integrated into Mortal World Peak, with a low presence and her talents unknown to others. Her life following the same routine as her previous days by Moonfall Divine Lake. Recently, she had reached core formation, and within Mortal World Peak, she was essentially like a servant disciple, tending to the medicine garden, much like Guin had once been. Guin could sense the immense spiritual power contained within her. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body was like a black hole, quite challenging for even a free immortal to discern her physique. Once she fully released it, her cultivation level would skyrocket. In terms of physique, she was definitely the strongest Guin had ever seen in his time, with the ancient treasure body paling in comparison by several levels. At this moment, Zhu Shi was planting medicinal herbs. Even though she was alone in the garden, she conducted herself with utmost caution, appearing no different from an ordinary disciple. Guin watched for a while, then lost interest and retracted his gaze. Guin had calculated thousands of possible deaths for Lu Jujia, most of them related to Jiang Shi. Hearing Gu Ans' words, Lu Jujia's expression changed drastically. He didn't reflexively rebut, but carefully reminisced. Had it been someone else who said this, he would certainly have been annoyed, but coming from a senior brother, he couldn't help but seriously ponder. Although he valued Jiang Shi, how could Jiang Shi compare to his senior brother in his heart? Even as he held Jiang Shi in high esteem, he did not take it upon himself to teach the innate reincarnation skill to Jiang Shi. I understand. Lu Jujia took a deep breath, dropped these words, raised his hand in salute, and turned to leave. Guin didn't say more and continued reading. Jiang Shi still didn't pose a threat to him. By evening, Guin left Mystic Valley and reached the Third Medicine Valley. He first found an Xian, revealed everything about the Chun family, and arranged for an Xian to visit the Intersect City tomorrow. The great elder of the Intersect City was from the LV family, and which the relationship between Guin and LV Baitian, the LV family would definitely take action. Summer passed, and autumn arrived, and in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. That night, Lu Jujia was cultivating in his house when he heard a knock on the door and, without opening his eyes, said, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and Jiang Shi walked in, approaching Lu Jujia to salute. "What is it?" Lu Jujia asked, his tone indifferent. Jiang Shi could sense the distance in his tone. "Eldest senior brother, I was wrong." Jiang Shi suddenly knelt down, his tone somber. In Mystic Valley, there was only one master, which was Guin. Even though they were like father and son, Jiangshi could only call Lu Jujia eldest senior brother. Lu Jujia opened his eyes and furrowed his brows. Jiangshi pressed his forehead to the ground and, gritting his teeth, said, "Although I'm not clear what exactly Master told you that day, I can feel your attitude. I admit that as a child, I did wrong. But I had no choice. Before my family was annihilated by the Emperor, they secretly sent me to Supreme Sect, and I had to find a way to preserve my life. At the age of 7, Mystic Valley was the most formidable place I had heard of, so he confessed all his childhood actions." Lu Jujia was quite shocked after hearing this. He hadn't expected him to have done such things. No wonder senior brother had an issue with him. But as he listened, Lu Jujia's feelings became complex. He saw his own reflection in Jiangshi. He too had made mistakes, and if not for his senior brother's care, he would have died long ago. Although Jiangshi's mistakes weren't as severe as his, he couldn't let Jiangshi cling to his senior brother. After Jiangshi finished speaking, Lu Jujia sighed. Jiangshi looked at Lu Jujia, his eyes red, and did not stand up for a long time. Lu Jujia, with a complex expression, said, "Don't blame your master. It's me not wanting you to cause trouble in Mystic Valley." Jiangshi hurriedly replied, "How could I possibly blame him? Over the years, I've received so many elixirs in Mystic Valley. Without Master's protection, how could I possibly have reached Foundation establishment so quickly? It was my fault after all. If I were Master, I would have expelled a disciple like me from Medicine Valley long ago." Thinking of Guan, Jiangshi truly had no complaints, only more awe. He had thought that no one knew of his childhood actions, but it turned out his master knew. Knowing this, yet still not abandoning him, how could he repay kindness with resentment? In previous years, he had also seen his master. Each time, his master would nod at him with a smile. Before, he merely thought his master was kind and didn't remember him. But now, knowing that his master had long understood his past, he felt his master was truly magnanimous, with the bearing of a sage. In fact, he was disgusted with his own past actions, but he had been driven to a dead end. At that time, his family was about to be executed, and he heard that the Valley Master of Mystic Valley had a very good relationship with the great cultivator, Leah, who was also the most favored son of the current emperor, so Mystic Valley became his only path to life. Lu Jujia looked at him with many things he wanted to say, but when the words came to his lips, he couldn't utter them. "There are two paths for you. Either go to a subsect, where Master will arrange a way out for you, and he will certainly not mistreat you, or stay in Mystic Valley and cultivate earnestly and temper your nature," Lu Jujia said softly. Jiangshi quickly said, "I choose to stay in Mystic Valley. I definitely won't let you and Master down. Do you want to hear my story?" Lu Jujia stared at Jiangshi, his expression turning somber. Jiangshi naturally wanted to listen, so Lu Jujia began to recount his own past, starting from when he joined Supreme Sect. Meanwhile, Guan was in the hidden spirit palace at the bottom of the sea. He looked at the palace he had crafted, very satisfied. In the dim seabed, hidden spirit palace glowed a ghostly blue, its walls reflecting the wave light, with two phoenix-shaped statues standing at the main gate. He was about to walk toward Hidden Spirit Palace when he suddenly sensed something and turned his head. In the eastern direction, a massive creature was approaching, a giant fish with a large head and small body, stretching 1,000 feet long, resembling a mountain range. It was chasing a small fish like Mount Tai chasing a pebble. The small fish was extremely fast, darting like lightning. No matter how the giant fish chased, it just couldn't catch up. Guan's eyes narrowed. The surrounding seawater churned, luring the little fish to change direction and escape towards the hidden spirit palace. Chapter 383. Leah struck after spending half the night in the hidden spirit palace. Deep into the night, Guan returned to Mystic Valley. Most of the buildings in the valley had turned off their lights, and the disciples were practicing in the darkness. Guan turned his head towards the forests at the edge of Mystic Valley. He saw a figure practicing swordsmanship. Jiangshi. For some reason, Guan suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu. He seemed to see a figure from hundreds of years ago. Back then, he had a disciple who also loved to practice swordsmanship in the forest, similarly burdened by a vendetta. Guan watched for a while, then walked towards his own loft. Back inside his room, he did not watch Jiangshi practice swordsmanship again. He recalled the prior conversation between Jiangshi and Lu Jujia and had no intention of intervening. The most important aspect of being human is that everyone has their own choices to make. Guan had already warned them, and Lu Jujia just needed to make a choice following that warning. Whatever the choice, Lu Jujia would have to face the consequences. If Lu Jujia insisted on suffering, then so be it. The greatest care Guan could offer to those around him was to ensure they would not die before their lifespan ended. Of course, nothing was absolute. Perhaps Jiangshi could change for the better. When Guan pointed out Jiangshi's past, he had already altered their destinies. A change for better or worse, time would tell. Only in the early hours of the morning did Jiangshi return from the woods, joining the disciples for morning drills, with Guan joining in, chatting and laughing with the disciples during the drills, even jovially talking with Jiangshi without dwelling on his past. Upon learning that Guan was not willing to accept him, Jiangshi did not harbor any animosity towards Guan, indicating that his nature was not beyond redemption. Naturally, Guan would not deliberately shut him out. Of course, by doing this, Guan also hoped to encourage Jiangshi to improve and to reduce the chances of him causing trouble for Lu Jujia. The day passed, and Jiangshi became very compliant, no longer pleading for anything. Time flew like an arrow. 30 years passed in the blink of an eye. That day, Guan came back early from Heavenly Phoenix Mountain and stood downstairs, waiting for someone's return. Ji Xiaoyu walked out from inside the house and stood beside him, her gaze on him, yet she remained silent with a cold expression. Guan felt uneasy under her stare and glanced at her, asking, "What's wrong?" Ji Xiaoyu said softly, "Guan, you're really heartless, not talking to me for so many years." Upon hearing this, Guan quickly turned around, helplessly saying, "I didn't talk to you. It's just because of your icy demeanor. I didn't dare to disturb you. And how often do you even leave the house in a year?" Ji Xiaoyu huffed, "Don't give me that. If it were your junior sister ignoring you, you'd definitely rush to appease her." "Impossible." "Oh, really?" Ji Xiaoyu wore an incredulous look. Guan earnestly said, "My junior sister couldn't possibly ignore me." Ji Xiaoyu's pupils dilated slightly, and she was tempted to leave, but restrained herself. Guan asked, "How has your cultivation been these years?" "I've already reached the 6th floor of the nascent soul realm." "Impressive, right?" Ji Xiaoyu, initially annoyed, couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing this. "Indeed impressive, almost catching up to me," Ji Xiaoyu said crisply as she contained her smile and responded coldly. Guan followed up, "What realm are you at now?" 8th floor of the unification realm." "What?" Guan widened his eyes in astonishment and asked, "How could you advance so quickly? Is cultivating to the unification realm that easy?" Ji Xiaoyu glanced at him and said, "You think it's quick because you don't take cultivation seriously. Regardless of the era, my cultivation speed is never considered top tier." "That's true. In my eyes, you've always had an elite talent." Guan declared seriously, inwardly thinking women are really hard to please. Praise you and you mock me. Don't praise you and you get upset. The two continued to chat, with Ji Xiaoyu intentionally easing their tense relationship, and Guan naturally went along with it. Before long, a figure flew in from the horizon. It was the person Guan was waiting for. The person flew swiftly and landed behind Guan, extending a hand towards him. Ji Xiaoyu quickly pulled Guan towards herself, causing the hand to miss. Guan took hold of Ji Xiaoyu's hand and turned to look. "Senior brother Li," Guan exclaimed excitedly. Li Ya's hand hovered in the air as he looked confusedly towards Ji Xiaoyu, not expecting her to react so quickly. Ji Xiaoyu felt Guan squeezing her wrist, but did not pull her hand away, and she calmly looked at Li Ya. Guan let go, stepping forward to enthusiastically greet Leah. The two exchanged pleasantries for a while, with Leah guiding Gu towards his loft, and Ji Xiaoyu followed closely. As they ascended the stairs, Ji Xiaoyu was still behind them, which made Leah puzzled as he looked at Ji Xiaoyu. "Let her come along. She's one of us," Guan said with a smile. Ji Xiaoyu's lips slightly curved upon hearing this. Leah felt awkward, but didn't refuse. After the three entered the house, Guan began making tea for Leah and inquired about his experiences over the years. Ji Xiaoyu sat on Guan's chair, and Leah didn't sit down immediately, narrating his experiences while scanning the furnishings in the room. Years had passed, yet there was little change in junior brother Gus' residence, evoking a rush of emotions in him. This attraction was inherent, and even as a free immortal, he felt drawn to it. Of course, this attraction was just a favorable impression and would not influence his major decisions. If a Hao offended him, he would not be lenient. He valued an Hao because he saw him as a bearer of a great fortune of energy movement. He had encountered such a great fortune holder 2 million years ago, someone he revered and aspired to emulate. Sadly, he didn't know whether they were dead or alive now. The saint ancestor's thoughts gradually drifted to the distant past, and a blurry figure appeared in his eyes. Days later, Guan went to the main city of the sect to find Leah, and the two drank heartily for a day and a night. Indeed, with Ji Xiaoyu around, Leah found it hard to speak his mind. Only when he was alone with Gu and could he let his guard down and talk about the hardships of these years. Something recently troubled him. It was his relationship with Li Xiandao. From childhood, he felt that his father, the emperor, did not like him, with this feeling intensifying after his mother's death. Now over 500 years old, he suddenly discovered Li Xiandao actually loved him deeply, even sending someone to invite him back to the imperial city. How could his feelings not be complex? Now that he knows I'm successful, he wants to win me over, not a chance. He has a genius child. Let that genius inherit his throne. What's he want with me? Leah spoke dejectedly. Guan didn't know what comfort to offer. In fact, Li Zuando's cultivation level was stronger than Li Yas, and Li Xiandao had no intention of passing the throne to his descendants. He wanted to remain emperor forever. For this reason, Guan thought that Li Zuando's invitation for Leah to return might be genuine. However, he couldn't intervene in other people's father-son relationships. LV Baishan's relationship with his son, LV Xian, was even worse. Over the years, LV Baitian would often tell Gu about his helplessness and regret when dealing with LV Xian. Looking at Leah, Guan thought he definitely should not have children. It would be too troublesome. Just thinking about the break between Long Zhan and Long Xian in the lifespan samsara gave him a headache. Even with a high cultivation level, one couldn't please everyone, especially when conflicts arose among close relatives. It only added to the emotional burden. At least Guan felt his current life was quite good, treating his disciple like a child. If the disciple courted death, he would help if possible, and if not, then so be it, with no pressure and at most heartache. Senior brother, do you know how Xiao Chuan spent his last 100 years? Guan suddenly asked. Liu was startled, naturally remembering Xiao Chuan. He frowned and asked, Xiao Chuan died? Guan nodded and said, yes, it happened many years ago. In his final years, he was entangled by his descendants' troubles, affecting his cultivation, but he had no regrets, even enjoying it. Unlike in her previous life, Ji Xiaoyu had grown up this time and had become even tougher, beyond the control of the Ji family. Li Yas and Ji Xiaoyu situations further solidified Gu An's resolve not to start a family. At least not for now. Guan hadn't yet achieved longevity and had many enemies to surpass. How could he be hindered by familial ties? If he already had family, he would naturally take great care of them, But since he didn't, there was no need to deliberately create familial bonds to satisfy emotional needs. Another new year arrived, bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new. After several days of festivity, Guin visited the hidden spirit palace alone. Over the years, this place continuously produced low-rank medical herbs, allowing Guin to harvest them each time he visited. He had just started collecting when he furrowed his brows. Why has it come again? He talked to himself. Only he and his clone were in the dojo of the hidden spirit palace, and his clone couldn't communicate with him. He was referring to a very fast little fish that approached the dojo every now and then. Even though his clone cast spells to drive it away, it never gave up. It seemed that the more he drove it away, the more it was attracted to this place. Guin decided to teach the little fish a lesson. He stood up and walked to an open area nearby. With a thought, a 1-meter-long fish appeared in front of him, and he stepped on it to pin it down. It was a goldfish resembling a carp, with scales brighter than gold and quite handsome. Its eyes were like gems. The goldfish widened its eyes, looking completely bewildered. Deep-sea dragon carp, unification realm, second layer 8504/12,000/15,000, to have lived 8,500 years and still be so small. Guin found it curious, as most demons grew larger as their cultivation level increased. Heavenly demons like Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai had very large true forms. The deep-sea dragon carp started to struggle violently, but no matter how it thrashed, it couldn't free itself from Guin's foot. Under Guin's suppression, it seemed to have no cultivation, making little noise and not posing any threat to nearby medicinal herbs. Guin took out the Qinghong sword, looking like he was about to kill it. The deep-sea dragon carp shut its eyes in terror and trembled incessantly. To Guin's amusement, he saw tears streaming from its eyes, resembling pearls as they squeezed out. "Scared now? Will you dare to swim here again?" Guin asked. The deep-sea dragon carp opened its eyes and hurriedly shook its head. Guin suddenly frowned, hesitating, "But you've already discovered my dojo. Letting you escape might bring me trouble later. Never mind, I'd better eat you. Should I steam you, or should I grill you?" The deep-sea dragon carp's eyes widened in extreme fear, and its tears streamed down. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.